Yo legends! Welcome to Fanfiction Legend. Grab your headphones, because today's story is about to hit different. Disclaimer. I do not claim ownership of this story. All rights belong to the original creators. Make the Uchiha great again. Chapter 61 The Kindness of the Nara Clan. Chapter 61 The Kindness of the Nara Clan. What a coincidence, I didn't expect to meet you here. It's quite a coincidence indeed. When Yuhara saw Kotonoha and Shikamaru, he walked towards them with a smile on his face, while Kotonoha shrugged slightly, looking neither enthusiastic nor resistant. Yuhara had long been accustomed to her condition, and his focus now was still on Shikamaru. In the original work, in addition to the protagonists with distinct personalities such as Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi, there are also various supporting characters that are extremely likable. Even though Nara Shikamaru is one of the guys that Yuhara likes more, he actually looks a bit similar to Jiraiya. They all seem unreliable on weekdays, but they are indeed the most trustworthy people at critical moments. Such slightly contradictory personalities have created their incomparable personal charm, not to mention that Shikamaru's future achievements will be astonishing. This guy not only married Fomiying's sister, but he himself also became the Minister of Political Affairs, and it can be said that he inherited his father's position. Of course, these are all things of the future. Yuhara doesn't know what the future will be like, and he is more concerned about the present. Yuhara remembered that Shikamaru was one of the first people to recognize Naruto, and he had a good relationship with Naruto. And now Yuhara is really interested in Naruto, or rather, he has some ideas about the nine-tailed fox in his body. What's that look in your eyes? Nara Kotonoha noticed the way Yuhara looked at Shikamaru, which made her a little puzzled. If you look at my brother like that, it will scare him. Sorry, I was thinking about something. Yuhara quickly came back to his senses, and then he smiled. Some interesting things. It's incomprehensible. Kotonoha rolled her eyes, and then she patted Shikamaru on the head. Go and play by yourself. Really, your father is so lazy that he actually asked me to take care of you. Oh. Shikamaru rubbed his head, but it was obvious that this guy seemed a little unhappy. However, no matter how unhappy this guy was, he dared not say anything. He didn't even dare to complain. He just turned around and left. Yuhara found this scene very interesting. He now suspected that Shikamaru kept emphasizing that women are trouble because Kotonoha bullied him too much. After taking a quick glance at Kotonoha, Yuhara felt that it would be better not to say such things. Anyway, Shikamaru, the little pineapple-headed Yuhara, had long thought about taking a shot at it, and although he never had the chance, he was quite satisfied seeing Kotonoha doing it. But speaking of it, Kotonoha didn't have the pineapple hairstyle of the Nara clan, and it seemed that in Yuhara's memory, Shikamaru's mother didn't have that style either. Could it be that the classic pineapple hairstyle is only exclusive to men from the Nara clan? What are you thinking about? Kotonoha saw Yuhara staring at Shikamaru's back in a daze. She said unhappily, "Why do I feel like you're acting so strangely this time when I meet you? Is it weird?" Yuhara came back to his senses, and then he spread his hands indifferently. "I don't think it's that weird." "Isn't it strange?" Yenyi shook her head, and then she suddenly covered her mouth and whispered seriously, "You are really brave. You killed someone directly in the village. Are you crazy? Come on, those guys attacked me first." Yuhara looked around. There were crowds of people around, but no one was approaching them. This made Yuhara feel a lot more at ease, but he also lowered his voice. He didn't want his conversation with Kotonoha to be heard by outsiders. "I warned you that the village was not peaceful. Do you know who started it?" Kotonoha also looked around, then asked in a low voice while walking forward. "I know. Although the Sandame is defined as someone from outside the village, when those guys were alive, they said they were looking for me because I had contact with Naruto." Yuhara chuckled, and then he gave an answer that stunned Kotonoha for a moment. "But I think they want to force Uchiha to take action. I know who those guys are. If nothing unexpected happens, they should be Danzo's men. It seems that you know the answer, but why don't you listen to my advice?" Kotonoha knew that Yuhara was smart. Although she was surprised by Yuhara's answer, she was not very surprised. She just frowned soon. "Wait, if you know that clearly but still stay here, are you planning to do something terrible? Having said that, Kotonoha's expression became much more serious. She stopped and stared at Yuhara, then she lowered her head and covered her face with her hair before continuing. If that's the case, then I think we should just have less contact. I don't want to be involved in such a terrible thing. I advise you to think twice before you act. After all, the fact that your clan has come this far has proven that they are really not capable, so listen to my advice. Having said that, Kotonoha couldn't help but stop, and Heinhara seemed a little amused. How could he not know that the previous manager of the Uchiha clan was incompetent? Otherwise, he would not have driven Uchiha Fugaku out of office. However, Yuhara would not tell anyone about such things. At least, he would never reveal any information until everything was settled. Looking at Kotonoha's back, Yuhara shook his head and had no intention of continuing to chase her. After all, the Uchiha issue was indeed very sensitive. However, what he didn't expect was that Kotonoha suddenly stopped. This made Yuhara curious, so he simply walked up and asked, "What's wrong? Is there anything else?" "Nothing, I just suddenly remembered that someone asked me to bring you some words." Kotonoha turned her head and looked at Yuhara. This girl was very careful. She first looked around covertly, and then made sure that there was no suspicious person or even a fly or something like that. She lowered her head as if nothing had happened, without even moving her lips, and spoke in a voice that only she and Yuhara could hear. Some people say that the current environment in Konoha is very strange, some troop movements are very secretive, and something seems to have happened in your family. So someone wants to let you know that your situation is not good. We are all from Konoha, and it will not be good for anyone to move casually. Some things need to be considered carefully. Having said that, Kotonoha suddenly raised her head and smiled. She patted Yuhara's shoulder hard and then spoke loudly. "Okay, you can't even speak clearly. I don't know what you are talking about. Is it about the dinner party? Let's talk about it later. I have something else to do, so I'll leave first." After saying this, Yenyu walked away without looking back, and this time she did not stop. Yuhara stayed where he was, and he couldn't help but fall into deep thought. End of this chapter. Chapter 62 Orders and Transactions. Chapter 62 Orders and Transactions. The goodwill of the Nara clan? Yuhara walked towards the training ground, and as he walked he couldn't help but recall what Kotonoha had just said to him. While recalling the past, he couldn't help but wonder what the meaning of this was, and why the Nara clan told him this. However, after some thought, Yuhara confirmed a lot of information, and also roughly understood the Nara clan's intentions. It is basically certain that Uchiha Itachi does have some bad ideas. It's really strange. I asked Shursui to find him and told him a brand new path. Why is he still like this? Yuhara really didn't understand why things had developed to this point, but he was too lazy to delve into it. After all, everyone has different ideas. Besides, he had already prepared himself mentally, so he was not surprised. What really surprised him was the attitude of the Nara clan. In the original work, Yuhara had never heard that the Nara clan would send news to the Uchiha. But after thinking about it carefully, Yu guessed that it was not that they didn't want to give it to them, but that they simply didn't know who to give it to. Giving it to Shursui is obviously impossible, because in the original work, when Shursui was alive, things had not yet developed to the point where they were out of control. It is even more unlikely to send the message to Uchiha Itachi after Shursui's death. Shursui is already dead, so wouldn't it drag itself down by sending the message at this time, now that Shursui is not dead, and there is someone like Yuhara who was a teammate of Nara Kotonoha and has a good relationship with her, then Yuhara naturally becomes a recipient of the message. In fact, the purpose of the Nara clan sending this message is very simple. On the one hand, it is probably really for Konoha, because Konoha really can't stand the turmoil now. If a real fight breaks out, although the Uchiha will be destroyed, Konoha will also suffer huge losses, plus a large family in the village will openly rebel. This is an even more devastating blow to Konoha's image in the ninja world. You must know that Konoha's image in the ninja world has already become very bad because of the actions of Kumogakure and Sarutobi Hiruzen. On the other hand, it was probably due to his dissatisfaction with Sarutobi Hiruzen. After all, there was the Hinata incident first, and secondly, what Danzo did to their families could be said to have completely broken the rules of the village. Whether it was Aburain Tone or Yamanaka Fuichi, they joined the clan willingly or not because they were forcibly snatched from various ninja families by Danzo. Because no one from that family was willing to send their outstanding disciples to Danzo. What's more, Danzo robbed more than just these two people, and more than just people from these two families. So to put it bluntly, it's because of dissatisfaction with the third generation that the Uchiha clan was discovered when problems arose, and there was someone like me who had some relationship with the Nara clan. That's why they passed the information to me in a veiled way, and the only person who knew this information was probably the minister of the Ministry of Political Affairs, Nara Shikaku. Yuhara basically guessed what was going on, and after knowing all this, a smile appeared on his face. All this reminded him of the Chunin exams, when even Kakashi stopped Kai, and the others disappeared without a trace. Especially Hyuga Hayashi, who was talking to Niji in the examination room just a second ago, disappeared in the blink of an eye and no one knew where he was. As soon as Sarutobi Hiruzen died, he appeared immediately, and not only his own family, but also all the people from other big families ran out. It's completely obvious how deeply these people are dissatisfied with Sarutobi Hiruzen. That's why they would watch Sarutobi Hiruzen die, right? Of course, it could also be the so-called samurai spirit. Let them fight one-on-one. However, they are not samurai, but ninjas. Shaking his head, Yuhara was too lazy to think about these questions. He had received the goodwill of the Nara clan, and it was not just the Nara clan. You have to know that Ino, Shika, and Sho always act together, but if you want to get follow-up news, you still have to rely on Uchiha himself. Only by doing what you should do, then you will have a future in the eyes of others and have the opportunity to continue expressing goodwill. Although I've asked Shursui to keep an eye on him, it seems that's not enough now. I have to modify all the existing defense mechanisms when I return, and I can't let him know. Although I'm not sure when that kind of thing will happen, there's definitely no problem in making preparations early. Besides, even if it were to happen, it wouldn't be now. We just expelled Uchiha Itachi, and Konoha will not fail to notice the vigilance against him, so Konoha will wait for a while. In the original work, after Uchiha Itachi met Danzo, he also spent a lot of time preparing himself mentally, and finally waited for Uchiha to relax his vigilance before taking action. At that time, the Uchiha didn't know about Uchiha Itachi's betrayal. Now I'm paying attention to you. If you dare to do this, it will give me an excuse to take action. In the root base, Uchiha Itachi, wearing the clothes of an Umbu ninja, has quietly stepped in. He prepared for many days and finally decided to take action today. Uchiha Itachi took off the mask on his face and walked in slowly. He could feel that someone was staring at him, but he didn't care. He had encountered this kind of thing many times, and this time, just like before, these people stopped staring at him after confirming his identity. Slowly walking to the innermost layer of the root, Uchiha Itachi saw Danzo sitting inside. He quickly half-knelt on the ground, lowered his head and whispered, "Master Danzo." "Oh?" Danzo nodded slightly, and then he seemed to reveal a hint of coldness. "I told you that there are some things you just need to report to me, but you don't seem to have listened to me." Uchiha Itachi said expressionlessly, "I'm sorry, Master Danzo, this matter is of great importance, so you're going to look for Hiruzen?" Danzo actually knew everything, but he didn't intend to ruin Hiruzen's plan. "I've heard about this too, what are you going to do?" Hokage asked me to ask Danzo-sama. Uchiha Itachi closed his eyes. He really didn't know how to answer this question, otherwise he wouldn't have come here. Danzo looked at Uchiha like this, his expression remained indifferent. He already had the answer, but he also had to pay attention to the changes in Uchiha Itachi. Because on that day, Uchiha Itachi had clearly told them that he possessed the Mangekyo Sharingan. "You want to hear my answer?" After a long while, Danzo said indifferently, "Then I will give you two answers. First, stand on the side of the Uchiha clan and do what you want with others. And second." Danzo's expression changed slightly at this moment, and he looked even colder and more terrifying. "Second, stand on our side, on the side of Konoha village, and save only your brother and kill all the other members of the Uchiha clan before the Uchiha does something unforgivable." As soon as he finished speaking, Uchiha Itachi was stunned, and at this moment, Uchiha Itachi's pupils changed. The three Magatama in his eyes had transformed into a boomerang pattern at some point, so weird and ghostly that one felt dizzy at just one glance. It really is a kaleidoscope. This little devil has also awakened these eyes. Danzo looked at those eyes and thought silently in his mind, but he didn't move much, but continued to speak indifferently. In order to protect the village, we must suppress this matter before chaos breaks out. The only ninjas who can take on this responsibility are the Uchiha and Konoha double agents. One is you, and the other is Shisui, but Shisui has already defected, which shows the seriousness of the situation. For the sake of Konoha, my order to you is to eliminate the hidden dangers. Do you accept this mission? Do you accept this mission? Uchiha Itachi closed his eyes slightly. Although he was mentally prepared, this task still seemed a little heavy. Just thinking about the current situation of the village, thinking about my brother, and the consequences of the conflict between the family and the village, and that Uchiha Madara soon, he opened his eyes and said with a serious look, "As long as you keep your promise, for Konoha, I am willing." Because I was not at home, I updated it directly using my mobile phone. In fact, the plot is really good. Everything has a cause and effect. If everything is omitted, it would really miss the point. As for the 1 month period, I think I can explain it clearly in this chapter. I have actually designed the plot and will definitely not mess it up. P.S. Please collect and read this, please everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 63, Being Strong is the Only Way. Chapter 63, Being Strong is the Only Way. In the blink of an eye, more than half a month has passed. The past half month has been busy but also extremely fulfilling for Yuhara, and Yuhara has also made great progress during this period. As he became more familiar with the Mangekyo, his physical fitness and chakra reserves also grew further. However, it is still the same as before, that is, the growth limit of his chakra is much higher than the growth limit of his body. Yuhara was personally very satisfied with all these changes, but those who served as his sparring partners were feeling miserable. After all, Yuhara's foundation is the Mangekyo. Even if he does not use the state of relying only on 3 Magatama to train, such intensity still makes those elites very uncomfortable. Of course, the most crucial thing is that they dare not be ruthless, and they know that Yuan is a kaleidoscope, so they are naturally afraid of it. Fortunately, their hard days can basically be declared over, because both they and Yuhara know that there will be basically no effect if they continue to practice like this. What Yuhara needs most now is consolidation. After all, he has learned so many things in the past half month, and a lot of things have happened in the past half month. For example, Shisui is now a free ninja. So you have submitted your resignation letter and left the Anbu completely? Sitting in a corner of a meatball shop, Yuhara looked a little lonely, but Shisui asked very determinedly. The reason why Shisui went to find Yuhara was very simple, which was to report the recent situation and tell Yuhara that he had left the Anbu. Yes, I have submitted the application and it has been approved. Shisui nodded helplessly, he rubbed his brows and then glanced at the soundproof barrier that had been set up, then he spoke slowly. But it's okay this way. The Anbu's missions are too busy and not suitable for me now. Besides, the Anbu won't assign me any missions now. Yuhara nodded. It was natural for the Anbu not to assign tasks to Shisui. After all, Itachi had already gone to find the third Hokage, so it was normal for Shisui to lose trust. In this case, there is no point for Shisui to continue staying in the Anbu, and leaving is the best option, otherwise Konoha would not have approved it so quickly. After all, the things that the Anbu comes into contact with can be said to be extremely secretive, and releasing him so quickly already explains a lot of problems. The only thing is that Shisui will probably be watched very closely now. Or maybe no one was watching at all, because Sarutobi Hiruzen and the others didn't care about what Shisui knew. Thinking of this, Yuhara felt a little depressed. None of the Uchiha affairs were easy to deal with. However, no matter what Uchiha Itachi or Sarutobi Hiruzen did, Yuhara felt that they must remain cautious and restrained, as well as be sufficiently vigilant. The Hokage absolutely cannot and will never issue an order to exterminate a clan. Sarutobi Hiruzen is a shrewd man, so he naturally would not do that. Then the only person who could give such an order was Danzo, and the only people who could carry it out were the root ninjas and Uchiha Itachi, and perhaps Uchiha Obito. This is also one of the reasons why Yuhara wanted to keep a close eye on Uchiha Itachi. By keeping a close eye on him and making all preparations, Yuhara could prevent them from launching a sneak attack. As long as they don't take action, the situation can be maintained, which is what Yuhara needs now. Let's not talk about that. How is Uchiha Itachi doing recently? And how is our Patriarch Fugaku doing recently? Knocking lightly on the table, Yuhara suddenly asked with some curiosity. Although he also understood the dynamics of these two people, he still hoped to get a more definite answer from Shisui. Itachi has been accompanying his Sasuke recently. He has not been on any missions or gathering intelligence. His behavior is normal but also very strange. When it comes to Uchiha Itachi, Shisui couldn't help but sigh. In his opinion, Itachi's behavior was indeed strange. He spent so much time with his brother and did nothing else. It seemed as if he was making up for the time he couldn't spend with Sasuke. And he also felt that Itachi's behavior was just like saying goodbye, which made Shisui feel a little uneasy. As for Patriarch Fugaku, he completely locked himself away, and apart from Mrs. Makoto bringing him meals every day, he would not see anyone else. Even Mrs. Makoto usually just delivered the food to the door and left, so she never got to see Patriarch Fugaku. Upon hearing these words, Yuhara couldn't help but touch his head. Well, neither of this father and son is normal. You have to know that Uchiha Itachi does not agree with the ideas of Yuhara and others, and Uchiha Fugaku is facing the final battle to be removed as the clan leader. As a result, one of them was desperately accompanying his younger brother, while the other one didn't see anyone and didn't seem to make any attempt to change the status quo. Is it true that people of the same family stick together? Of course, maybe they have already made preparations but others just don't know about it? Shaking his head, Yuhara was too lazy to think about the matter between the father and son, because the more he thought about it, the more headache he would get. I understand, but tell the people in the tribe to be more careful recently. It is necessary to change the secret sentries and don't let others know. After thinking for a moment, Yuhara spoke. The secret sentry also needs to be changed? Shisui was stunned for a moment when he heard this. What are you worried about? Are you worried that the village will? The Hokage won't, he can't possibly give such an order, but we ourselves must also be careful. Don't forget that I was ambushed last time. Yuhara explained directly, and what he said was true. So we still have to take necessary precautions. Don't forget that I was attacked by them. Of course, you can also understand this as a necessary adjustment and change of defense. Upon hearing this, Shisui nodded seriously. He still remembered clearly the sneak attack on Yuhara, and he was sure that it was Danzo's doing, but he had no evidence. Okay, I understand. I will go back and discuss this with the elders and finalize this matter as soon as possible. Then I'll leave it to you, Shisui. Yuhara smiled and nodded, but there was one thing he was struggling with for a long time and still didn't say it out loud. Because he was still thinking about letting Shisui figure out Naruto's life pattern. Naruto has the nine-tailed fox in his body, which is definitely a super killer weapon. Although no one knows how to control the nine-tailed fox, if Yuhara can hold Naruto in his hands at the critical moment, it will be a huge deterrent to Konoha. However, doing so would very likely lead to a fallout and would also have huge negative consequences, which made Yuhara hesitate. He was afraid that if he really did this, Shisui might not be able to accept it, so after thinking for a long time, he gave up this plan. After all, things haven't come to that point yet. He is just habitually prepared for the worst and is considering whether or not to make more radical preparations. But he also knew that some things were better done by himself. Only by becoming stronger can you completely eliminate all dangers and hidden dangers. End of this chapter. Chapter 64 The Curtain Opens. Chapter 64 The Curtain Opens. 1 month is neither long nor short. Especially for Uchiha Itachi, this month was both happy and tormenting. He was happy because he finally had time to spend with his younger brother, making up for the time he had been unable to spend with him after he joined the Umbu. But what is tormenting is the changes within the family and the pressure brought by the guy who claims to be Uchiha Madara. Uchiha Itachi could not understand or agree with Shisui's ideas. Looking at all this from the perspective of the Hokage, this was a confrontation between the family and the Hokage. The Hokage is the person elected by the village to represent the will of the village. Isn't going against the Hokage the same as going against the entire village? Of course, Uchiha Itachi didn't make up his mind completely at the beginning, he was still struggling with thinking. It was only the appearance of the guy who called himself Uchiha Madara and Danzo's words that made him make up his mind completely. There is no need to elaborate on the horror of Uchiha Madara. Although Uchiha Itachi also felt that this guy might be a fake, the Sharingan hidden under the mask could not deceive people. What's more, facing this guy, Uchiha Itachi also felt infinite pressure. Such a person appeared quietly in Konoha, and there must be some unspeakable secret. The family changes, Shirsue's betrayal, and the appearance of Uchiha Madara, all of these made him feel infinite pressure. Under such extreme pressure, and with Danzo's guidance, he finally made his own decision. Clear away the disaster for Konoha, and use this to get close to Uchiha Madara and provide information to Konoha, perhaps because they were worried that Uchiha Itachi was under too much pressure, or perhaps to give him time to prepare. Sarutobi Hiruzen and Danzo both gave him a month's vacation to rest. Now that the vacation time has arrived, Uchiha Itachi knows that he will soon have to take action. Brother, what are you thinking about? At dusk, Uchiha Itachi was walking and responding to Sasuke's words absent-mindedly, which aroused Sasuke's dissatisfaction. Sasuke pouted his lips and looked a little dissatisfied, but in fact, he was more like a spoiled child. Nothing, just thinking about something important. Uchiha Itachi shook his head slightly, then he thought for a moment before speaking with a smile. By the way, go home by yourself later, I have some things to do. What? Didn't you say you would stay with me today? Sasuke's face couldn't help but become even more gloomy when he heard Itachi's words. Although he knew that his brother had been with him for so long, people are greedy. Sasuke likes nothing more than being with his brother, since his brother has been taking care of him since he was a child. It's just that due to time constraints, the time they spend together has always been sporadic. Now that they have a rare month to spend together, Sasuke is already very happy, but he still hopes to have more company. I'm sorry, I have to leave because of something. Uchiha Itachi remained patient and said, besides, my brother is a ninja in the Umbu, and many things are beyond his control. Having said this, Uchiha Itachi stopped, while Sasuke still pouted and looked very unhappy. This made Uchiha Itachi shake his head. He walked in front of Sasuke and squatted down. Then he suddenly stretched out his finger and gently tapped Sasuke's forehead. Next time, Sasuke. I'll be there for you next time. Really? I'm not a kid anymore. Sasuke rubbed his forehead. This really made him feel a little painful, but he had already forgiven his brother in his heart. He was not an unreasonable person and naturally knew that his brother could be very busy sometimes, so it was very likely that he just ran towards home by himself. As he ran, he said, remember, brother, you must match me well next time. Looking at Sasuke's back, Uchiha Itachi kept smiling, but when the back disappeared into the dusk, the smile on his face completely disappeared. Finally, he sighed and turned to run towards the cliff where he and Shirsue had secretly met. As the sun sets, the silver moon has quietly hung in the sky, and Uchiha Itachi has been waiting here quietly for a long time. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, because he felt a strange chakra emerging around him, and he knew that the person he was waiting for had come. It seems that you have made up your mind. Obito, wearing an orange spiral mask, said in a dull tone, Uchiha Itachi. Didn't you say you are Uchiha Madara? I hope you can show your strength. Uchiha Itachi had no intention of talking nonsense. He looked at the mysterious man in front of him and spoke indifferently. I need your help. The Uchiha has a Mangekyo. It will be very troublesome if it is used. You mean, Uchiha Shirsue? Obito's voice was still hoarse, but there seemed to be a hint of teasing in his voice. I heard that you are good brothers and good friends, and it seems that you have really made up your mind to take action against him. But, I want to attack more people than just you and me, right? After all, there are so many Uchiha people, even if you and I are both Mangekyo, it is not that easy to deal with them. You don't need to worry about these things. Uchiha Itachi's expression remained unchanged, but his fists had begun to clench, and his eyes had turned into a kaleidoscope state. It only takes a few people to cooperate. I can do the rest. I just want an answer. Can you help me deal with him? Interesting, really interesting. Uchiha Obito looked at Uchiha Itachi with a mocking look, but in the end he nodded. Then, as you wish. But I have to remind you that it's best to wait until they are off their guard before taking action. After all, Uchiha Shisui is also a Mangekyo. The silver moonlight illuminated the earth, and in the Uchiha clan, Shisui came to Yuhara's house with a ninja sword. The ninja sword you requested has been prepared for you. This sword is truly very special. There is a special spiritual mark inside it. The craftsman spent a lot of effort to remove it. Shisui took the knife and placed it on the table, then he spoke with a slight smile. It starts tomorrow, are you ready? Of course I'm ready. I didn't spend this month in vain. Yuhara smiled and picked up the knife on the table and looked at it carefully. The knife was not heavy, with a standard ninja sword shape, and the feel of the knife was also very good. It's a pity that the material of this sword is extremely suitable for lightning release chakra, so the effect of Yuhara's wind release water bird dance may be reduced. But even with the discount it is still better than ordinary ninja swords. Ordinary ninja swords are not incapable of carrying chakra. However, its efficiency in carrying chakra is very low, and it will break due to carrying too much chakra. This ninja sword can be said to make up for Yuhara's shortcomings in this aspect. By the way, how's the secret sentry thing going? Yuhara nodded with satisfaction, and then he asked curiously. It's ready. Don't worry. The elders all recognize your caution and prudence. Shisui nodded, and then he said very seriously, come on, Nara. Thank you, Shisui. Yuhara's expression became much more serious. He will definitely work harder tomorrow. In other words, he will definitely try his best tomorrow, because this is when the curtain opens. Thanks to Uchiha Yuhara for the reward. Thank you, thank you. Please collect and read the new book. Please help. End of this chapter. Chapter 65. Let's get started. Chapter 65. Let's get started. The next morning, all the ninjas of the Uchiha clan asked for leave at the same time. They dispersed and came to the forest beside a canyon at the edge of Konoha village, and the family's guard team began to prepare early. Naturally, everything that is going to happen today will not be announced to the public, and outsiders will not be allowed to get close. Even if it is to be announced, it must wait until everything is over. Elders such as Uchiha Takatoshi and Uchiha Mune were already waiting here. They had their eyes closed and seemed very calm. But to be honest, they were not calm at all. After all, they knew that Uchiha Fugaku also had the Mangekyo Sharingan. Not only Uchiha Fugaku, but Uchiha Itachi also has this pair of eyes. They really don't know how such geniuses appear in this family. That's right, these elders didn't dare to say that Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Itachi were geniuses. They all felt that the term genius was more suitable for this father and son. One is weak and indecisive, the other does not understand or intends to understand the changes in the family, and the other is so determined that it is unimaginable. It's really hard to believe that these two people are father and son, and it's really hard to believe that both of them have opened the Kaleidoscope. If not geniuses, what are these people? However, according to the intelligence, Uchiha Fugaku did not tell Uchiha Itachi about his eyes, and Uchiha Itachi did not communicate with his father either. The weirdness of this father and son really made them amazed. Did they have no intention of communicating at all? Moreover, after Uchiha Fugaku locked himself up, he refused to see anyone, but Uchiha Itachi, as his son, never made any plans to meet him. This kid just spends time with his younger brother and does nothing else. You know, Uchiha Fugaku was waiting for a serious battle involving the clan leader and the battle between the two Mangekyo. And the Uchiha clan also knew that this Uchiha Itachi had met with the Konoha high-level officials. As a result, the two of them behaved like this, which is really weird and makes people feel extremely incredible. But no matter how weird it is, at least this father and son don't have any information, otherwise the two pairs of Mangekyo against the two pairs of Nara and Shisui would probably make things worse. I have to say that sometimes when a person has a strange personality, it is really hard to define whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. At least this is not a bad thing for these reformers. They don't need to worry too much about so many things. The sun continued to rise in the early morning. Today was a good day. Under the bright sunshine, Yuhara and Shursui walked slowly. Not far from Yuhara and Shursui, Uchiha Fugaku was walking towards them silently. The sunlight lengthened his reflection, making him look lonely and desolate, but his aura seemed unusually resolute. Soon, the three of them had arrived at the center of the forest, and people from their two camps had quietly come behind them. In terms of numbers, Yuhara and his team have an absolute advantage. However, the number of people is not the key at this time. The key still lies in Yuhara and Uchiha Fugaku. Patriarch Fugaku, long time no see. Yuhara looked at Uchiha Fugaku at this moment, and he could not help but nod it slightly. You look a little haggard, this is not the posture you should have before a battle. Thank you for your concern, Yuhara-kun. Uchiha Fugaku shook his head gently. His tone was polite but could not be refused. I'm fine, please don't worry. Although it may look a little bad, I know my condition well. I don't have any problems. Yuhara nodded naturally after hearing this. Actually, what he said was just a trick. It was a great thing for him that his opponent was in a bad state. How could he give up his advantage? After all, Yuhara was also a qualified ninja, and ninjas would never hesitate to do anything to achieve their goals. I understand, Patriarch Fugaku. Yuhara nodded directly, then he turned to look at the elders such as Uchiha Zong and Uchiha Takatoshi, and Uchiha Fugaku also looked over. After these elders had a relatively quiet conversation, Uchiha Zong finally came out. He glanced at everyone present, and finally he spoke loudly. We are all gathered here today to respond to the impeachment of the clan association a month ago. Chief Fugaku, no matter what the outcome of today's duel is, you will lose your position as chief. Do you have any doubts? No. Uchiha Fugaku shook his head calmly. He had known this result a long time ago. In fact, he had lost his position as clan leader since the end of the clan meeting. Hawahara-kun. Uchiha Mu nodded, then looked at Hanahara again. If you win this battle, you will be the new head of the Uchiha clan. However, if you fail, you will not be able to obtain the position of clan leader directly, but you can still retain the position of clan leader candidate and participate in family affairs. Yuhara-kun, do you still have any doubts? No. Yuhara shook his head slightly. How could he not hear that Uchiha Zong's words were actually on his side? It can be seen that these people are really worried about Uchiha Fugaku's strength, but they also know that they have offended Uchiha Fugaku and it can no longer be changed. At the same time, Yuhara himself is supported by Mangekyo and Shursui. If they turn around and support Uchiha Fugaku, then Yuhara will probably cause trouble for them. To put it bluntly, this is a dilemma, so the only thing they can do now is to firmly support Yuhara. What's more, Yuhara had already impressed them, and they also recognized Yuhara. Even if Yuhara lost, they would still follow Yuhara's arrangements. Of course Yuhara couldn't refuse such an arrangement, but what made him laugh and cry was why these guys felt that the possibility of their losing was so high. Although Yuhara had to admit that Uchiha Fugaku was indeed a strong enemy, his Mangekyo ability was unknown to Yuhara. However, Uchiha Fugaku also did not know the ability of Yuhara's Mangekyo, not to mention that in addition to the Mangekyo, Yuhara also possessed powers granted by the system. The most important thing is that the ability of Yuhara Mangekyo can enhance the power granted by the system. Uchiha Fugaku also shook his head slightly, indicating that he had no problems. Then he took the lead and walked out towards the bottom of the cliff. Yuhara nodded to the elders and followed them down. After all, it is a battle between two Uchiha of the Mangekyo level. No one knows how large the affected range will be. It always helps to be careful. Looking at Uchiha Fugaku walking in front of him, Yuhara was also a little overwhelmed at this moment. He knew that he had completely reached the last step, end of this chapter. Chapter 66 Uchiha Fugaku's Strength. Chapter 66 Uchiha Fugaku's Strength. Below the cliff, the river is rushing. Yuhara and Uchiha Fugaku stood opposite each other on the river. All the Uchiha ninjas who were able to watch the battle were watching everything silently in the forest above the cliff. A gentle breeze blew by, and neither Yuhara nor Uchiha Fugaku took action, but their momentum had reached a peak. The chakra aura that seemed to be real was constantly swirling above the river. Under the cover of such a terrifying aura, the two of them were as terrifying as Shiras. Hawahara-kun, I never thought that my opponent would be you. After a long while, Uchiha Fugaku suddenly spoke, and you are the one who really makes me feel incredible. Should I thank Patriarch Fugaku for his praise, or should I feel guilty? Yuhara shook his head slightly, his expression focused as if he was constantly looking for an opportunity. You don't have to feel guilty, you just did what you were supposed to do. Uchiha Fugaku continued to speak, and this time his expression was much more serious. I am amazed by your talent, your forbearance, and your vision. I have to admit that I have always underestimated you and have always defined you as just a family genius who doesn't fit in. But your actual performance proves that you are not just a family genius, but the kind of genius who can sit in the position of shadow. Moreover, your strength is not weaker than Shursui, and you even have the Mangekyo Sharingan like him, so you will be a qualified clan leader. Clan leader Fugaku, what do you mean? Upon hearing this, Yuhara couldn't help but frown. He felt that Uchiha Fugaku's behavior today was really strange, and what he said now was even stranger. These words sounded so unconfident, as if he had already tacitly agreed to hand over the position of clan leader to Yuhara. If he really did that, today's battle could have been avoided, but his actual performance seemed to be different. This made Yuhara feel a little strange, but no matter how strange it was, Yuhara would not relax at all, because he was facing an Uchiha of the Kaleidoscope level. It doesn't mean anything, just some emotion. Uchiha Fugaku shook his head slightly, and then his face became serious. You'll know what I mean, but you have to be careful now because of the battle. Before he finished speaking, a cold light flashed across Yu Yuan's neck, as fast as thunder. It started now. Yuhara had been concentrating the whole time. The moment Uchiha Fugaku made his move, his eyes had already turned into 3 Magatama state, and then he dodged this terrible attack by moving sideways. At the same time, the ninja sword on his waist was instantly unsheathed, and with a blue light, it slashed directly towards Uchiha Fugaku's back. Ninja battles are always very terrifying, and Uchiha ninjas who possess the Sharingan have an even keener grasp of timing. As long as the opponent is distracted for a moment, they will attack without hesitation and launch a fatal attack on the opponent. From movement to stillness, in just a moment, the two of them were completely intertwined. The flashes of swords and sabers continued, and the aura of chakra swept across the river, but the two of them seemed to have a tacit understanding and did not start fighting seriously. Although the fight looked intense, everyone knew that it was probably just a warm-up. After all, this kind of warm-up is a way to help them relatively understand each other's approximate strength and ability. The 3 scarlet Magatama kept spinning, and the terrifying insight was fully displayed at this moment. After Uchiha Fugaku dodged Yuhara's sword, he immediately stabbed at Yuhara's neck with his kunai. Then his movement stopped halfway through. With a strange twist, Uchiha Fugaku stabbed his kunai to the side. But Yuhara suddenly appeared, grabbed his arm, and then stabbed his abdomen with his ninja sword without hesitation. This scene made everyone on the cliff tremble with fear, but as Uchiha Fugaku turned into a ball of smoke, they couldn't help but nodded. Such a battle is really exciting, and even they can learn a lot from it. Just to watch a battle like this, it seems that you must open the Sharingan to see it better. Many Uchiha ninjas were thinking silently in their minds, and some had already opened their Sharingan, staring intently at the 2 ghostly figures below. Yuhara's scarlet eyes rolled slightly, and the next moment he burst out with incredible speed. Although the feedback brought by his Mangekyo is more reflected in his own chakra, the improvement in his physical body is relatively small. But his speed at this moment is not comparable to his speed half a year ago. So fast. Uchiha Fugaku appeared beside the river. He muttered something in his mind, but he was not panicked at all. Because his Sharingan had already captured Yuhara's figure. Yuhara swung the ninja sword in his hand straight out, and with a light flick he deflected Uchiha Fugaku's kunai. The blade flashed and appeared in front of the opponent, and he chopped it down without hesitation. However, at this moment, Uchiha Fugaku had already completed the seal with one hand. The river water around him was rushing wildly, and a thick wall of water was blocking his way. Water escape, water formation wall. Water escape? Yuhara was also a little surprised when he saw the sudden rise of the water wall. There were not many Uchiha who mastered water jutsu. After all, everyone was born with fire jutsu, so it was naturally difficult to learn water jutsu. Therefore, it was really strange for Yuhara to see Uchiha Fugaku display such proficiency in water jutsu. But strangely, Yuhara did not stop at all, and the chakra of wind escape appeared on his ninja sword. Uchiha Fugaku, who performed this technique, threw the kunai in his hand directly at the water wall, and he himself jumped up to create quite a distance. At the moment he was retreating, the thick water wall was cut directly in half by Yuhara like tofu, and the kunai flew in front of him. Detonating charm? Yuhara's eyes twitched slightly, because he clearly saw that there was an explosive tag stuck on the handle of the kunai. I have to say that Uchiha Fugaku has a lot of different methods and a wealth of little tricks. Although this guy's character is really very problematic, his strength is unquestionable. At least in actual combat, many of his methods and skills have brought a lot of inspiration to Yuhara, but attacks of this level are really unlikely to pose any threat to Yuhara. In particular, the ninja sword in his hand at this moment has gathered the wind attribute chakra. Boom! Suddenly, the detonating tag exploded directly, and the huge roar accompanied by strong flames completely spread to Yuen. However, at the moment of the explosion, a hint of Azure Chakra quietly appeared on Yuhara's body. I'm back home, so the update time will still be automatically 7 AM. Thanks to my book friends 2021030511118466686 and MLife Winner X for their rewards. Thank you. P.S. Please collect and read on. Thank you everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 67 Kaleidoscope Confrontation. Chapter 67 Kaleidoscope Confrontation, Part. This. The flames and thick smoke caused by the detonating talisman made the Uchiha clansmen watching on the cliff frown. They didn't think that Uchiha Fugaku had gone too far, nor did they think that Yuhara couldn't avoid such an attack. It was only because they opened their Sharingan in order to better watch the battle between Yuhara and Uchiha Fugaku that they noticed the special chakra on Yuhara. That layer of chakra tightly wrapped Yuhara. Although it was invisible, it was real. This made them really wonder how Yuhara did it. However, some hardline elites and those who had witnessed what Yuhara did that night seemed to have a lot of speculations in their minds. When the breeze slowly blew away the thick smoke, a figure suddenly jumped out from the side. The ninja sword in his hand once again burst out with a blue light, and he rushed directly towards Uchiha Fugaku's position. Ding! A crisp sound of metal collision suddenly rang out, and Uchiha Fugaku used a kunai to block the ninja sword at the critical moment. After taking a closer look at Yuhara in front of him, Uchiha Fugaku couldn't help but nodded slightly. The violent explosion caused by the detonating tag didn't even leave any trace on Yuhara, but his body still retained the wave-like Azure Chakra. It seems that you have mastered Susanoo to an astonishing level. While Uchiha Fugaku was fighting against Yuhara's ninja sword, he suddenly spoke in a low voice. I noticed it last time, but now I can basically determine that this kind of pure chakra defense is so strong, it must be Susanoo. I can see that you have a very strong grasp of Susanoo. I feel more relieved with such power. But it is not enough now. You have to be careful, Yuhara-kun. Yuhara listened to Uchiha Fugaku's words and didn't know what to say. How come the Ki-Hei shield turned into Susanoo? Although this Chi shield does look a bit similar, there are still many differences between the two. At least, the Ki-Hei shield has no way to complete its transformation and eventually become the form of Susanoo. However, Yuhara had no intention of explaining this to Uchiha Fugaku. Besides, he could see that Uchiha Fugaku seemed to have no desire to continue talking to him. The kunai in his hand was pressed forward fiercely, and the powerful force instantly made Yuhara feel some pressure. At this moment, Uchiha Fugaku jumped back and threw the kunai in his hand towards Yuhara. At the same time, his hands quickly formed seals, and the next moment a huge fire dragon spewed out of his mouth. Fire release, dragon fire technique. A fire dragon instantly spewed out from his mouth, raising a large amount of steam from the river water, and it roared as it rushed towards Yuhara. Did you use ninjutsu? Yuhara raised his eyebrows, but he quickly responded. The three Magatama in the Sharingan spun rapidly, and in just a moment he had accurately found the weak point of this technique. As the ninja sword in his hand, with the chakra of wind escape, directly pierced into the head of the huge fire dragon, the fire dragon was directly cut in half. After doing all this, he quickly jumped back, while at the same time he quickly formed seals. He is not afraid of ninjutsu confrontation, especially since he is an expert in using ninjutsu himself. Fire Release, Phoenix Immortal Fire Technique. Yuhara did not choose a very powerful fire escape technique, but he chose the technique with the widest range. Countless sparks spread everywhere, instantly covering Uchiha Fugaku completely. Uchiha Fugaku smiled slightly, as ninjutsu was his area of expertise. Although he heard that Yuhara was good at fire escape, he believed that Yuhara would not miss it during this month and learn more. But after all, Yuhara was still too young. At this time, Yuhara was only 16 or 17 years old. Whether in terms of chakra reserves or proficiency in ninjutsu, he didn't think that this young man would surpass him. But he will not be careless at all, because Yuhara also possesses the Mangekyo Sharingan. It is inevitable that one's body will be strengthened after obtaining the Mangekyo Sharingan. Therefore, even if he is confident that he can surpass Yuhara in this aspect, he still has to be extremely careful. Water Escape Water Formation Wall. Thinking of this, Uchiha Fugaku quickly formed hand seals, and the natural choice he made to deal with the fire escape was water escape. As he formed hand seals, a water wall instantly appeared on the turbulent river, and this water wall directly blocked all of Yuhara's fire escape. However, Yuhara had no intention of showing weakness. He clasped his hands together, and the next moment a huge fire dragon spewed out of Yuhara's mouth. The fire dragon instantly caused a lot of water mist to appear on the turbulent river. The scorching heat caused the water to begin to evaporate, making the fire dragon look even more hazy. The hazy fire dragon roared and rushed towards Uchiha Fugaku in the mist. Uchiha Fugaku watched this scene calmly. For him, this kind of fire escape connection was indeed very good, but he could completely use his own fire escape to resist. However, he felt that this kind of warm-up was enough. Through this kind of battle, he was basically able to determine the approximate abilities of Yuhara's taijutsu and ninjutsu. What surprised him even more was Yuhara's use of Susanoo. The level of his proficiency really left him speechless. In particular, Yuhara did not use the Mangekyo Sharingan at all. The purpose of warming up was to collect intelligence and confirm strength, and the purpose of his battle this time was actually just to confirm something. At this time, he had already planned to speed up the progress. He planned to see how far Yuhara could go with his full strength. As soon as he thought about it, the three Magatama in Uchiha Fugaku's eyes began to spin rapidly, and a cold and destructive aura soon enveloped the surroundings. With the help of the Mangekyo's super insight and dynamic vision, Uchiha Fugaku easily avoided the attack of the fire dragon with just a light jump. And the moment he landed, he had quietly come to Yuhara's side, and at the same time, the strange chakra had quietly bloomed. Kaleidoscope? Yuhara raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect Uchiha Fugaku to use the Mangekyo Sharingan so quickly. But since he has used it, Yuhara will not be polite at all. Since he opened the Mangekyo, he has only used it when fighting against those guys from the root. And that time, Yuhara also felt the power of the Mangekyo, and those guys at the root were definitely not weak. But under the observation of the Kaleidoscope, these guys have almost no secrets, and their every move is known to Yuhara. With the use of pupil techniques, Yuhara easily sent all those guys to the Pure Land. And now he has to face Uchiha Fugaku, who also possesses the Mangekyo. He also wants to try out how far his eyes can see. Moreover, he was also very curious about what Uchiha Fugaku's abilities were. The aura of both of them has changed. What a terrifying aura! Have they used forbidden power? On the cliff, many Uchiha ninjas felt the sudden change in the aura below. The cold and destructive power made them feel suffocated. They were all elite members of the Uchiha clan, and they had all participated in the clan meeting, so they reacted immediately. This is probably because either Yuhara or Uchiha Fugaku have begun to use the power of the Mangekyo. Things have finally developed to this point. Uchiha Zone stood on the cliff and couldn't help but sigh slightly. Don't worry, the fight between the two of them was quite restrained. Uchiha Takatoshi also spoke, but he soon lowered his voice. By the way, how is Uchiha Itachi doing recently? I heard that he has met Sarutobi Hiruzen. Shursui is watching, and the sentry has also been changed. This is an order from Yuhara. Speaking of Uchiha Itachi, Uchiha Zone also felt a little pain. Watch this battle that can determine the future of the family carefully. Uchiha Itachi will be fine. A battle that will determine the future of the clan? Uchiha Takatoshi couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. The Uchiha clan now belongs to Yuhara. What future are you still worried about? If the Uchiha clan had not returned to Uchiha Takatoshi, indeed, the current Uchiha clan could be considered to belong to Okihahara. But Yuhara still lacks one thing, and that is the legal title of clan leader. Have you decided to use the power of the Kaleidoscope so soon? Yuhara stopped his attack. His eyes had already shown a kaleidoscope state. He looked at Uchiha Fugaku calmly and spoke slowly. The 3 Magatama state contest is enough. I have learned your limits and abilities. This is enough for me. Uchiha Fugaku also had a calm expression, but his chakra had begun to surge wildly. Then we naturally need to go a step further. Besides, isn't the state of the 3 Magatama limiting our ability to exert our strength? As soon as he finished speaking, Uchiha Fugaku appeared in front of Yuhara like a ghost, and the kunai in his hand stabbed towards Yuhara quickly. Ding! Yuhara reacted extremely quickly. He quickly raised his ninja sword to block the kunai, and then pressed the ninja sword forward fiercely, sticking his whole body to it. After the Mangekyo Sharingan was activated, the speed, strength and even reaction of both Yuhara and Uchiha Fugaku became visibly stronger and more exaggerated. Yu Yuan felt this deeply. Although the battle pressure became greater at this time, for some reason he felt that this battle experience became more comfortable. And those tribesmen who were watching the battle had a deeper understanding of it. They had already used their Sharingan to watch the battle, but they found that although they could understand the battle and their bodies could keep up, they simply couldn't do it. In such a fierce battle, Yuhara has quietly used the power of Daofan. He could clearly feel that Uchiha Fugaku was indeed much stronger than him in terms of basic strength, but this was also natural. This guy is older than Yuhara, and his physical fitness and combat experience are not comparable to those of Yuhara, who is still in his growth stage. Especially in terms of the feedback from the kaleidoscope, this guy got a longer feedback time than Yuhara. In such a situation, no matter how much Yuhara cherishes his eye power, he will start to use it appropriately and reasonably. He wants to defeat Uchiha Fugaku. He doesn't want to be beaten by this guy. 2 phantom-like figures constantly intertwined and shuttled back and forth in the canyon, and their restrained fighting was extremely dangerous. The constantly echoing sound of metal colliding made people feel the suffocation of the battle. But at this moment, Uchiha Fugaku quietly moved away. The strange and complicated kaleidoscope in his eyes spun rapidly, and the next moment his chakra surged wildly, and the seals in his hands were quietly completed. Fire escaped, the great fire extinguishes. Along with his powerful chakra, in an instant a sea of fire like a wave was directly spewed out by him. Looking at such a huge sea of fire, Yuhara didn't dare to go forward any further. Although Uchiha Fugaku's fire escape technique could not compare with Uchiha Madara's, it still blocked Yuhara's movement path within this canyon. Are you forcing me to use Susanoo? Yuhara thought quickly and realized that in fact, large-scale earth escape or water escape could be used to defend against the technique in front of him. But it is obvious that he is not very good at earth escape technique, and he is even worse at water escape technique. Uchiha Fugaku may know this information. However, Yuhara's abilities are not limited to the Mangekyo Sharingan. Using Susanoo is a good choice, but it would be too casual to use it at this level. Yuhara gently swung the knife in his hand. Perhaps he felt the hot breath, and azure chakra appeared on his body. The flames spread quickly, and the next moment, Yuhara's figure flashed slightly, and the flames had covered the place where he was originally. Okay? Uchiha Fugaku frowned. He didn't know what was going on with Yuhara at the moment, but he instinctively felt the threat coming. Suddenly, he quickly raised his head because he felt the terrible chakra brewing above his head. Sure enough, when he looked up, Yuhara was already flying in the sky. Flying ninjutsu? Uchiha Fuya murmured in his heart, but soon he had to quickly form a seal because Yuhara had already made a move. Fire escape, fire is extinguished. Yuhara flying in the sky did not give Uchiha Fugaku any time to sigh. A fireball came quickly like a falling stone. After landing, the flames quickly spread to form a sea of fire. This sea of fire has a larger range than Uchiha Fugaku's terrifying fire, and its power is also stronger. The terrifying flames made the entire canyon seem to be on fire. Under the cover of such terrifying flames, I am afraid that few people can resist it. Uchiha Fugaku was obviously the one who could resist, but his face was full of a bitter smile at this time, because he didn't expect that Yuhara's ninjutsu was so different from before. Is it a pupil technique? Can it enhance the ability of the technique, or is it something else? Uchiha Fugaku was thinking silently in his mind, but he also knew that it was obviously unrealistic for him to resist with ninjutsu alone, so he made a decision. The kaleidoscopes in his eyes spun rapidly, and in an instant his body was covered with a layer of yellow chakra. This yellow chakra spread wildly and took on a human shape in just a moment, Susanoo. It is obvious that Uchiha Fugaku can also use Susanoo. After all, he has had this pair of eyes for so long, even if he doesn't use it, it is impossible that he has not studied it. At the same time, he quickly formed seals with his hands, and a huge wall of water rose from the ground along with the surge of his chakra, blocking the sea of fire before it spread. However, at this moment, he suddenly saw Yuhara flying above him and landing quickly, with his ninja sword held high in his hand, and sharp wind-style chakra surrounded his ninja sword. Chief Fugaku, I will definitely take the position of chief. I will be the sharp edge of the Uchiha. Secret technique, water bird dance. End of this chapter. Chapter 68 Uchiha Fugaku and #039's determination. Chapter 68 Uchiha Fugaku's determination. The sharp blade, accompanied by the sharp wind escape, continued to spread around, and Yuhara's raised ninja sword was swung down gracefully. Under the crazy blessing of Tao's anti-power, Yu Yuan seemed to feel that he had mastered the power to destroy the world. However, he knew very well that this feeling was just an illusion. Yuhara knew all the directions of the future, and his strength was really not enough. It is undeniable that the kaleidoscope is indeed powerful, but its power is only applicable in the present and the next few years. After all, in less than 10 years, with the start of the Fourth Ninja World War, the power of ninjas will be redefined. Besides, Uchiha Fugaku used Susanoo. Even with the help of Daofan, my water bird rant may not be able to break his defense. Even though Susanoo has a dark history of being broken by wind escape, it is undeniable that Susanoo is the most powerful defensive technique. Even though Ohara's Mizutori Ranbu is powerful, it is really difficult to cut it directly. However, he is confident that he can leave enough cracks on this Susanoo. As long as cracks are caused, Uchiha Fugaku will have to find a way to repair them, which will consume more of his eye power, and Yuhara's opportunity will come. However, Yuhara must also note that he is still not sure what Uchiha Fugaku's eye technique is. But no matter what his eye technique is, it is the same to Yuhara. After all, Yuhara is also prepared, and he must get what he wants today. Even though he is the one who calls the shots in the family now, he still feels like something is missing without this legal title, especially since he feels like he is missing a lot of system rewards. The sharp blade, like a gust of wind, accompanied by flames, continued to entangle Uchiha Fugaku, and Yuhara's ninja sword slashed through the yellow Susanoo accurately and gracefully. There are 3 parts in total of water bird dance, and each part is actually a nightmare-like memory for Yu Yuan. He himself can't even remember how many times he was killed by the prosthetic knife with wind blades. But now, he decided to make Sandan Mizutori the nightmare of the entire ninja world. Those rude ninjas have already proved the horror of this sword technique, and now Yuhara wants to use Uchiha Fugaku to prove the power of this sword technique. Okay? But when Yuhara launched the second part of the sword dance, he could feel that some cracks had appeared on Uchiha Fugaku's Susanoo. However, at this moment, he felt a terrifying chakra gathering in Uchiha Fugaku's eyes. Amaterasu? Or some other jutsu? Although Yuhara still did not stop, his eyes began to rotate slightly, and the azure chakra that originally belonged to the Kai shield on his body also underwent some changes. If it was Amaterasu, he was really not sure whether the Ki shield could withstand it, so the best choice would naturally be Susanoo. If it was any other technique, when he was unsure of what the ability was, Yuhara would naturally trust Susanoo. After all, this is a Mangekyo-level battle, and ordinary defensive ninjutsu may not be useful. However, the next moment, Yuhara suddenly found that the world in front of him had changed drastically. The originally colorful world turned black and white at this moment. The sun in the sky was like moonlight, but this moonlight seemed lifeless. The surrounding world also became lifeless at this moment, and the flames and wind blades disappeared without a trace. Even the battle between Yuhara and Uchiha Fugaku seemed to have never happened. Illusion? Yuhara raised his eyebrows. He didn't feel anything unusual at all, but was dragged into this illusion space. Obviously, this should be Uchiha Fugaku's eye technique. This eye technique seems to be somewhat similar to Tsukuyami, but everything in it seems to be very different from Tsukuyami. But these are not the point. The point is that Yuhara found that his situation seemed a little strange. It doesn't restrict me or limit me. What's going on? Am I too arrogant or too confident? Yuhara felt his own situation and found that he did not seem to be restrained at this moment, and everything about him was fine. This made him feel a little strange, or rather, today's battle made him feel a little strange, because Uchiha Fugaku's performance was really too weird. Habarakuen, I'm sorry to have to communicate with you in this way. At this moment, Uchiha Fugaku's voice slowly sounded in this space, and his figure quickly appeared in this space. Yuhara turned his head to look. He was now a little confused by Uchiha Fugaku's series of actions, but he did not relax his vigilance at all. Communication, does Patriarch Fugaku have anything to say to me? Yuhara asked cautiously. Yeah, actually I really have a lot to say, but I never had the chance. Uchiha Fugaku gave a bitter smile, which made Yuhara feel even more strange, but he did not care about Yuhara's expression, but continued to speak on his own. At the clan meeting a month ago, Mr. Yu's speech was thought-provoking. I used to think that even if I wasn't an excellent clan leader, I was at least a qualified one. But after listening to what Habarakuen said and seeing how much support he had, I realized that I had reflected on myself. During this month's gap, I locked myself up and didn't see anyone, including my wife and son. I also carefully reviewed what I had done as the patriarch of the family. Combined with what Yun said, I got a sad answer. I am indeed not a qualified clan leader. I can even say that I am a bad clan leader. Having said that, the bitter smile on Uchiha Fugaku's face became even more intense, which made the expression on Yuhara's face even more strange. What's going on? He was fighting and then he came here to reminisce with me. Is this the traditional presentation of Naruto, or is Uchiha Fugaku sick? Thank you, Yuhara-kun. It's you who made me realize how weak and terrible I really am. It's you who made me realize how unqualified I am. Uchiha Fugaku continued to speak, and at this moment his expression became extremely sincere. I think, Habarakuen must be wondering about the purpose of this battle? Yuhara didn't say anything, but looked at Uchiha Fugaku quietly. He seemed to understand what Uchiha Fugaku meant, but he was not sure at all. In fact, the purpose of this battle is very clear. This is a signal and an inevitable process. It also has important meaning to me. Although Yuhara remains silent, Uchiha Fugaku laughed at this moment. I will end the illusion in a moment, and I will give up my defense after I get out. Your swordsmanship is excellent. It is definitely one of the best swordsmanship I have ever seen in my life. I won't have any regrets dying under such swordsmanship, especially with you who possesses the Kaleidoscope. I forgot to divide the last chapter into sections. End of this chapter. Chapter 69 You underestimate me. Chapter 69 You underestimate me from my swordsmanship? At this time, Yuhara was basically sure of what he was thinking, which made Yuhara feel a little funny and helpless. It seems like this guy is on the verge of a mental breakdown, like Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Itachi. They are both people with strong wills. Once they decide on something, they will definitely take action. For example, after Shirsue's death, the moderates collectively defected and became hardliners. He paid the price for his indecisiveness and was forced to become the leader of the hardliners. After becoming the leader, he did a lot of things and made a series of preparations for the family coup. It's just that this guy could have stopped Uchiha Itachi on the night of the genocide, but he suddenly had another mental breakdown. After seeing the so-called future of the village provided by Uchiha Itachi, he got carried away and took his wife with him to wait for death. Yuhara actually felt somewhat accustomed to this confusing behavior happening to him. And if Yuhara guessed correctly, his choice this time would be a good thing for Yuhara, but it might not be a good thing at the same time. Yes, let me die under your knife. This is my redemption. It is me who brought the family to this point. This is something that I cannot undo even if I die. Although Uchiha Fugaku could see that Yuhara was thinking, even though his expression looked a little strange, he still continued to speak. But, Hainhara-kun, now that you have appeared in the Uchiha clan, you were so decisive and powerful at such a young age, you will be a qualified clan leader. But becoming a patriarch requires prestige. Only by killing me can you gain the greatest prestige. This will make those people afraid of you and worry about you. The most important thing is that they will recognize you. I will die with no regrets if I use my death to create a new Uchiha. Sure enough, it is true. The corner of Yuhara's mouth twitched slightly. Looking at Uchiha Fugaku, who was already determined to die, Yuhara didn't know what to say for a moment. Maybe this guy also faced the crazy Uchiha Itachi in this way, and told Uchiha Itachi, "You are a gentle child, do it." What a lunatic. Indeed, killing Uchiha Fugaku would make the Uchiha clan and a series of elders including Uchiha Chitake fear him, and allow him to gain unimaginable prestige. He could even reach the level of having the final say in clan meetings like Uchiha Madara, but the trouble this would bring would be unimaginable. Publicly killing a former clan leader would definitely leave a deep grudge in the hearts of the Uchiha clan's elites. Even Shursui would probably have objections. What's more, attacking one's own family members is an extremely disgusting thing, because everyone has the same blood. Although Yuhara kept talking about convincing people with reason, he never killed anyone when he actually did it, even though he did consider killing some disobedient people. But that was also the last choice, and he was very restrained and only targeted those spiritual leaders, especially since his purpose was also for the Uchiha clan. He is not Uchiha Itachi, who can attack the entire clan for a vague reason, and he does it for outsiders without considering any other options. In addition, Yuhara must also consider what kind of negative feedback his forcibly bound system will give to him for killing Uchiha Fugaku. Okay, I think I've said everything I need to say. Just as Yuhara was complaining in his heart, Uchiha Fugaku spoke again. Then, next is. Why should I listen to you? After coming back to his senses, Yuhara interrupted Uchiha Fugaku and spoke directly with a stunned expression. If I want to be the clan leader, I will do it in an upright manner. I don't need to kill you to gain the prestige I want, that's why I said you are not a qualified patriarch. You don't have the beliefs that a patriarch should have. Because you made such a huge mistake that brought the family to such a state, this cannot be offset by your death just because you fail and are no longer the clan leader. Why don't you think about how to help me, how to make Uchiha rise again and become great, instead of just seeking death? Having said this, Yuhara paused for a moment, and then he smiled. Also, why do you think I need you to let me win? You really underestimate me. As soon as he finished speaking, Yuhara quietly activated the secret technique, Firm Will. At this moment, Yuhara instantly felt that all his negative influences were purified. At this moment, his mind was extremely clear and his mental strength was extremely concentrated. In his eyes, he could see a world where black and white were intertwined, and he could also see a still world where blades and flames were intertwined. Raising his head slightly, the kaleidoscope in Yuhara's eyes spun rapidly, and terrifying chakra continued to surge. When his chakra reached its peak, he suddenly raised his hand. At this moment, in this space of only black and white, the moon-like sun in the sky was instantly dyed red. This blood-red sun makes this black and white space exude a unique charm. In just a moment, the blood-red sun had turned into a scarlet eye, emitting endless blood color, instantly dyeing the entire world blood-red. In the blood-red eye of the sun, there is also a strange kaleidoscope pattern slowly rotating. That appearance was exactly Yuhara's kaleidoscope. This. Uchiha Fugaku was stunned when he saw the scene, and the next moment his face changed completely because he found that he had lost control of this illusion space. Bah! Suddenly, a sound like glass breaking was heard, and countless cracks appeared in this space where black and white were intertwined. These cracks spread wildly like a spider web, and in the cracks there were fragments like glass fragments falling out. Bang! Bang! The shattering sounds became more and more frequent and more harsh, and this world of black and white began to show a different brilliance. Until everything disappeared and the world returned to the starting point again, Yuhara's third sword dance in the real world had already been quietly performed. And this time, the figure of Susanoo appeared on his body. Boom! The sharp blade chopped fiercely on Uchiha Fugaku's Susanoo. The three-stage sword dance formed a sky full of sharp blades, causing more cracks to appear on his Susanoo. And Yuhara's Azure Susanoo also took the opportunity to launch an offensive. With the help of Dofan, that simple punch seemed to have the power to split a mountain. Under such a sudden explosion, the earth seemed to be shaking wildly, and Uchiha Fugaku's Susanoo was directly shattered. At this moment, Uchiha Fugaku looked in very bad condition. There were bloodstains at the corners of his eyes, and the moment his Susanoo was shattered, he was no longer able to resist. He quickly controlled Susanoo and reached out to help Uchiha Fugaku, who was flying backwards, thus preventing this guy from falling into the sea of fire. Looking at Uchiha Fugaku, who was extremely weak but still conscious, Yuhara suddenly smiled. "I told you, you underestimated me, didn't you?" Uchiha Fugaku couldn't help but smile bitterly when he heard this. He didn't say anything but nodded firmly. At this moment, the Uchiha people who were watching seemed to wake up from this strange and shocking battle. What followed was cheers from all over the sky, as well as the shouts from Uchiha Mune and Uchiha Takatoshi. The winner is Uchiha Yuhara. End of this chapter. Chapter 70 Meet the Patriarch. Chapter 70 Meet the Patriarch. After this battle, which was enough to make all the Uchiha clan members who participated and watched it talk about it with relish, all of them returned to their clan's territory as soon as possible. However, they had discussions along the way, even though this battle seemed a little beyond their scope. The previous battles were fine. Although both of them were very fast, they could also rely on their Sharingan to clearly see the trajectory of the battles. But ever since these two men opened their Mangekyo Sharingan, the battle had become something they could understand and guess, but were simply unable to do anything about. These two people seemed to have become completely different people after opening their eyes, and the battle between them reached an incredible level. Moreover, Master Yuhara's swordsmanship is too terrifying. The swordsmanship that carries the wind escape and has undergone a qualitative change is so terrifying that even from a distance one can feel it. That's right. Although that sword technique looks extremely simple, with only 3 stages of sword dance, I feel like I can't even handle the first stage. Are you mistaken? Now we should call him Chief Yuhara. And is Chief Yuhara's power beyond our imagination? As soon as these words came out, many Uchiha ninjas immediately looked upset. That's right, at this time Yuhara can be said to be the absolute clan leader both in terms of law and strength, and they must change their words. Uchiha Zong and elders such as Uchiha Takatoshi walked together. Such a scene would have been impossible to see in the past. Because these two people can be said bluntly that even if they are a family, they are basically at a point where they have no contact with each other until they die. But now they can walk together peacefully, and even cooperate well in the clan meeting and the battle of clan leaders just now, and all of this was led by Yu Yuan. I never thought that this child would really go this far. As Uchiha Zong was walking, he suddenly laughed. I still remember that he threatened to kill me if I didn't obey him. In the blink of an eye, he has become the real patriarch. He just said he wanted to kill you, but he actually did it to my people. Uchiha Takatoshi also laughed, but soon he sighed. But he was just talking. He really didn't do anything cruel. He even saved Uchiha Fugaku in the end. Uchiha Fugaku's Susanoo was shattered by Habara. If Habara didn't save Uchiha Fugaku, he would fall into the sea of fire. Even if they had grudges, they would not say much about such a death. Moreover, Uchiha Fugaku was the previous clan leader. If this guy was really killed by Yuhara, then no one could shake Yuhara's prestige. But he did not do so. He did not let the kaleidoscope of his family perish in the sea of fire, even though they were political enemies in the strict sense. Isn't it good to follow such a person? Uchiha Zong glanced at Uchiha Jiju and couldn't help but chuckle. Uchiha Jiju was stunned for a moment, then he smiled and nodded. Although Yuhara is very strong, his strength actually guides this divided and broken family back to normal, which is the level that the members of their clan can accept. In addition to being strong enough, Yuhara also showed a certain humanity, which is really important. But after laughing, Uchiha Takatoshi's expression became serious again. By the way, you are doing the security defense this time, there are no problems, right? Don't worry, the outside world has set up a barrier, and according to the request of Chief Yuen, we have modified the barrier. Uchiha Zone's expression also became serious. He looked around and then lowered his voice and said, "Even the tribesmen here don't understand these things, and in order to prevent someone from taking advantage of the loopholes and using the transformation technique to come in, I specially asked several trusted people to monitor it with Sharingan to make sure that nothing goes wrong." Uchiha Takatoshi couldn't help but nodded when he heard this. Although he didn't say specifically who to guard against, everyone actually knew it. Konoha didn't dare to take action against them first, but someone would always do something, and there were also a very small number of people in the family who didn't quite understand them. Not long after, they dispersed and returned to their family's clan territory. However, they did not return to their respective posts or go home to rest. Instead, everyone turned back and came to the Nanga Shrine. Although the battle is over, there are still many things to be dealt with within the family. Replacing the Patriarch is never an easy task. Hayahara-kun no, clan leader. When all of them returned to the shrine and took their seats, Uchiha Fugaku was the first to stand up and speak to Nara. But it can be seen that he is still somewhat uncomfortable at this moment, because in the past, others always called him clan leader. This is the clan leader's seal. From now on, Yuhara-kun is the true clan leader. The Uchiha are in your hands. Yuhara looked at Uchiha Fugaku, whose expression was serious and unnatural, but somewhat relieved. He finally nodded calmly. Extending his hand, Yuhara took the family seal handed over by Uchiha Fugaku. At this moment, he suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. From being forcibly bound by the system to today, Yuhara has spent more than half a year to finally reach this step, and today is the moment to witness his success. Although Yuhara really wanted to complain about why this seal was not a fan, such a complaint had already disappeared in his slightly excited mood. Taking a deep breath, Yuhara raised his head and said seriously, "Elder Jushu once told me that I must agree to 2 conditions if I want to get his support. I still remember these 2 conditions clearly. First, I must ensure the safety of the family. This is my obligation as the Patriarch. Second, I must do everything I promised. I want to make Uchiha great again. And I promise again today that I, Uchiha Yuhara, will become the sharp blade of Uchiha, and I will lead Uchiha to greatness again." Following Yuhara's low but extremely firm words, everyone present was silent, but at this moment they felt their blood boiling. At this moment, Shursui stood up. He looked at Yuhara seriously and then smiled. Then he bowed slightly and said in a clear voice, "Greetings, clan leader." Uchiha Takatoshi and Uchiha Mune also stood up, and they followed closely and bowed slightly to Yuhara, "Greetings, clan leader." Uchiha Fugaku took a step back, then he bowed respectfully, "Greetings, clan leader." Under their leadership, all the Uchiha members present stood up collectively, and then they bowed and shouted to Yuhara with an extremely respectful attitude. "I've met the Patriarch. It's time to deal with Uchiha Itachi soon. Many classmates say to just kill him directly, but I think that's a bit too easy for him. What could be more tormenting than thinking that he is right but constantly proving that he is wrong?" End of this chapter. Chapter 71 Setting the Tone. Chapter 71 Setting the Tone. After the identity of the clan leader was officially confirmed, the clan members who participated in the early morning clan meeting left quietly. However, Hainhara, Shursui, Uchiha Mune and Uchiha Chitake stayed, and even Uchiha Fugaku, who had originally planned to leave, was kept. Yuhara becoming the clan leader marks the end of a stage, but they still have a lot of follow-up matters to deal with. For example, after their discussion, Uchiha Takatoshi and Uchiha Soichi both agreed that the family needed a celebration to boost morale. Yuhara did not object to this point. The family really needed to boost morale to face the next challenges. Will it be held tomorrow? Is it in time? Besides, we haven't informed Konoha yet, and the issue with the security department hasn't been dealt with yet, right? Yuen's head was full of question marks, and he really felt a little anxious. That's right, Chief Hahara. As the former clan leader, Uchiha Fugaku spoke on behalf of the Uchiha clan. Since you became the head of the Uchiha clan, you naturally inherited the position of Minister of the Guards. Even if I need to prepare relevant resignation materials for the security department when I leave, it is just a formality, and I will just inform Konoha afterwards. After hearing this explanation, Yuhara couldn't help but nodded. Wow, he really treats the security department as his own home. Although according to Yuhara's understanding of the neighboring island country in his previous life, this kind of thing is actually very normal, but Yuhara is still somewhat uncomfortable with it. Moreover, it was impossible for him to reform the guard department according to the previous practices. Yuhara believed that Uchiha Mune and Uchiha Takatoshi were well aware of this. It is conceivable that after Yuhara takes over the security department, he will inevitably make relevant adjustments to certain people and positions within it. Thinking of this, Yuhara couldn't help but touch his chin, and he began to think about how to deal with some things in the future. After he became the clan leader, his top priority was naturally the relationship between the Hokage family and the Uchiha clan. Hokage is the Hokage of Konoha, but Konoha is not the Hokage's Konoha. This is a very important point that needs to be made clear. Konoha is made up of ninja families of all sizes, as well as tens of thousands of civilian ninjas. Yuhara is well aware that the conflict between the Uchiha clan and the current Hokage system is too deep. Moreover, after experiencing the last encounter with Nara Kotonoha and the story in the original work, Yuhara realized that there are quite a few families that are dissatisfied with the current Hokage system. Now that I have become the clan leader, I need to do something to repay the Nara clan's kindness last time. What's more, Yuhara had already determined the future development direction of the guard department. Doesn't the Hokage want Uchiha to take the blame for the guard department? And are they secretly controlling public opinion to discredit themselves? Then I will just let the guard department loosen up and allow all the ninjas in the village to be eligible to come in. Under such circumstances, Yuhara doesn't believe that those in the Naruto faction would dare to continue to slander them. Okay, let's hold the celebration tomorrow while ensuring safety. Thinking of this, Yuhara had already made up his mind. After organizing his words, he spoke directly. But we will be busy in the next period of time. 2 elders, after the celebration is over, please select a few families. Shursui and I will go visit their clan leaders. Visit their clan leader? Yuhara's words made Uchiha Mune and Uchiha Fugaku look strange, while Uchiha Takatoshi looked a little ugly. Master, you are the head of the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Takatoshi immediately advised, it seems a bit damaging to visit other clan leaders. Elder Juji, I understand what you mean. Yuhara interrupted Uchiha Takatoshi before he could finish his words, but he still behaved very politely. But Elder Takatoshi, I think Elder Zone should have told you about my plans for the future of the Uchiha clan, especially the security department. I know, I heard from the elders of the clan. Uchiha Takatoshi nodded. He certainly knew about this. Uchiha Fugaku was a little curious. He really didn't know these things, but he was no longer the clan leader. Technically he wasn't even supposed to be here, so it was best for him to remain silent. Since Elder Juji knows this, he should also be aware that we need to unite with others. And didn't I say that many of Konoha's big families are not so satisfied with our third Hokage because of the Hyuga clan's affairs? Yuhara smiled gently, his eyes involuntarily looked at Uchiha Fugaku. Of course he knew that Uchiha Fugaku was listening here. However, he didn't care that what he said was heard by Uchiha Fugaku, because what he said was not a secret at all. In addition, Yuhara also hopes that Uchiha Fugaku, the owner of the Mangekyo, can truly calm down and help him. Therefore, telling him things that are not secret but not completely public can be considered a way of showing trust. In fact, Yuhara didn't want to be so cautious. After all, Uchiha Fugaku's previous performance really moved him. But this guy's son is Uchiha Itachi, and he also has a dark history in the original work. Although Yuhara knew that he had no contact with Uchiha Itachi in the past month, Uchiha Itachi had already met the third Hokage and might even have met Danzo. The most important thing is that Uchiha Itachi also has the Mangekyo, and who knows what his next move will be, so Yuhara really has to be careful. Although Yuhara was confident that Uchiha Fugaku would not stab him in the back, this was analyzed based on his previous performance. But in the original work, this guy finally saw Konoha letting Uchiha Itachi take action, and then saw the future presented by Uchiha Itachi's illusion. He actually just waited for death in a fit of anger. This behavior of not even resisting was really worrying. God knows that it was because when he saw that the person who did it was Uchiha Itachi, his fatherly love burst out. Or maybe he felt his own dereliction of duty and failure and simply decided to die with his entire clan. If it was the first one, Yuhara would really have to be on guard. If it was the second one, then Yuhara could trust him completely after confirming some things. If he has no opinion of his own, then just guide him to do what he should do. After all, he is not the Patriarch anymore. You mean, you took the opportunity of visiting them to pass on some necessary information? Uchiha Takatoshi has been in the family system for so long, and although he has overlooked many things due to his extreme personality, it does not mean that he cannot understand. If that's the case, then it's really necessary to pay them a good visit to convey our goodwill. That's settled then. The task of drawing up the list will be left to you two. Yuhara made the final decision right away, and Shursui nodded seriously. Obviously he had no objection. Everyone, I need to emphasize that if the family wants to change, there are some things we must do. Otherwise, what is the point of me being the Patriarch? Besides that, security cannot be relaxed at all. Don't forget that our current situation is really not very good. Yes, Mr. Patriarch. Including Uchiha Fugaku, everyone present responded loudly, then they stood up and chose to leave. Yuhara also stood up, but he did not choose to leave for the time being, not because he had anything else to do. It was because the system in Yuhara's retina that forcibly bound him to his family had changed again. End of this chapter. Chapter 72 System Rewards. Chapter 72 System Rewards. The points that Yuhara obtained last time allowed his family's prosperity to reach a wonderful number, but it was still too few points for him. The huge Uchiha clan is under his control, even though those clansmen cannot directly give 1,000 points like Mangekyo. But there can't be so many ninjas, and some of them have opened the Sharingan. It's really unreasonable to say that there are only so few of them. Through the system, Yuhara knew that although he had become the actual controller of the Uchiha clan, he was lacking in legal terms. Therefore, the points awarded would naturally not be too high, but now he was not only the actual controller, but also legally obtained the title of clan leader. Just now during the meeting, Yuhara already felt that there seemed to be some tremors in his system, as if it was giving him a reminder. It's just that he didn't have time to pay attention to these things just now, but now he has the time and energy to think about it carefully. Focusing his attention completely on his own system, Yuhara sought his information panel in just a moment. Currently bound to Uchiha clan. Current status, relatively balanced. You have solved the internal problems of the family, and have been officially recognized and become the Patriarch, but there are still evil people around you. Prosperity, 14396, the normal family's basic prosperity is 10,000. Suggestion, make appropriate changes to the family so that they can truly return to Konoha. Looking at the prosperity of his family, Yuhara's mouth twitched slightly. It's not that he is particularly sensitive to numbers, but if the 1 is removed from this number, it really makes people imagine. But no matter what, Yuhara was still extremely satisfied with this improvement, because he gained more than 2,000 points in this wave. Even if the system really discriminates against non-Kaleidoscope members and the points given are not high, it is enough for Yuhara to draw twice. What's more, Yuhara also noticed the suggestions given by the system, which coincided with Yuhara's own thoughts. In fact, moderate reforms were already underway. Before Yuhara launched the impeachment against Uchiha Fugaku, they had already determined the future ideological guidelines and political demands of the family. Of course, further reforms will take time to advance, such as further ideological and cultural education. The world of ninja is quite good at teaching certain specific skills, such as the mathematical calculations that once troubled Yuhara. This thing requires a person to figure out the various parameters that affect the flight of the kunai in a very short time, and then how to throw the kunai more accurately to stab the enemy. In addition, there are various combat skills teachings and various related knowledge supplements. However, when it comes to ideological construction and helping a person understand the world, there is basically no such thing. Shursui is a typical example. Before Yuhara told him the nature of war, he foolishly believed that war was an act of revenge driven by hatred. Of course, Yuhara would not go into depth with such improvements. After all, this world is a world with supernatural powers, so it is enough to stop at the right time. The most important thing is to establish a reliable set of values. Even if you want to be a keyboard politician, you should at least understand why things are like this and what the connections and contradictions are. In addition to the tribe, there are also the outsiders, and these two must be done at the same time. The environment outside the tribe is actually not optimistic. The most important thing is the existence of the guard department. Although Yuyuan plans to open the guard department, others may not be able to come directly, so he must start to change the guard department. At the very least, some necessary regulations should be put in place to regulate the guard department's law enforcement methods, as well as the attitudes of individual Uchiha when enforcing the law, and so on. So, strictly speaking, the suggestions made by the system are not much different from what I thought. Yuhara thought silently in his mind, but soon his attention returned to the prosperity of the system. How to do it is something to consider later, but the prosperity tells Yuhara that the points he has obtained can be used to draw a lottery, which is the most joyful thing now. Not surprisingly, these were two power extractions, although Yuhara never considered himself to be a very lucky person. After all, he didn't get anything powerful, but every skill he got was very practical to him, and that was enough. Congratulations to the host for becoming the patriarch of the family. The prosperity of the family is inseparable from the efforts of the patriarch. Although the current external situation of the family is still dangerous, the internal situation has been integrated. A family that is united is a family with cohesion and fighting power, and a family with a future. If the current host obtains more than 2,000 points, he can obtain 2 opportunities to extract abilities, and the 2 extractions will be combined. Secret Art, Black Flame. Black Flame is the black flame of hunting gods. However, it has lost its divinity, but even so, it is still extremely powerful. After obtaining the secret technique, one can selectively replace ordinary flames with ninjutsu. The intensity and quality of the flames far exceed those of ordinary flames. Although it cannot be eternal, its power is unimaginable. Seeing this thing, Yuhara's mouth twitched slightly. Isn't this the fire used by monsters like Shinpi? Yuhara remembered that he seemed to have used it when playing games before. The big sword looked like an Olympic torch. The flames released when it was swung were really beautiful, and it seemed to be quite powerful as well. Yuhara touched his chin. He thought it would be nice if he could draw the real Big Brother's bionic teardrops. But it seemed that the Big Brother had been chopped off before he traveled through time. He shook his head. The choice given at the beginning was very good. Perhaps it was because he would receive such a reward only if he truly became the patriarch. But he can choose 2, which means he has 6 options for reference, and he needs to take a closer look at what the other rewards are. Secret Technique, 10,000 Thunder Prison Induction, can release a thunderstorm within a certain range. The power of the technique is proportional to the output of chakra. Secret Technique, Crowstorm, use chakra to form death ravens, causing the enemy to fall into endless illusions and fear, and even causing irreversible damage. Secret Technique, Void Walking, instantly teleport to a designated location across space, within 100 meters, can cause space vibration. If chakra is released again within 15 seconds, more chakra will be consumed. The more chakra is accumulated, the stronger the space shock will be. The damage caused to the enemy will be unimaginable. Secret Technique, Unstoppable Blade, use secret techniques to let the blade contain chakra light. In the next 5 seconds, your attacks can ignore defense. Sword Technique, Blood Blade Dance, causes unimaginable damage to the enemy like a whirlwind, and makes the enemy bleed like a dance. Can advance or retreat. Yuhara stared blankly at his 6 options and couldn't help swallowing. He swore that this was the first time he had seen such a rich and valuable reward. End of this chapter. Chapter 73 Celebration Night. Chapter 73 Celebration Night. Such generous rewards really dazzled Yuan, and he really wanted to have them all. Because each of these skills can enhance Yuhara's strength, even the Bloodblade Flurry that overlaps with his current swordsmanship can greatly increase his strength. But now he can only make a decision out of 6, so Yuhara really needs to consider it carefully. In fact, there was not much to consider about the first choice, and Yuhara directly took the secret technique, Void Walking. As a famous halberd boss, Kaisa's biological father, the father of mages, and a level 16 Voidwalker who destroys the world. Yuhara himself didn't know how many times he had been trampled to death by this guy in his previous life, and his abilities were very suitable for Yuhara to use in the current world. Although the stacking mechanism is retained, resulting in an extremely terrifying consumption capacity, Yuhara feels that it is still very useful as long as it is controlled well. Moreover, this is a space teleportation ability, and if the timing is right, it can definitely create the possibility of a one-hit kill. Besides, according to the system's adaptation to the current world and the description I just saw, I'm afraid this technique will also be modified, just like the skydance technique. In fact, this is the same as what Yuhara thought. If you don't have the composure to stack it 4 times in the game, you are basically doomed, but here the number of stacking times is much greater. Simply put, if the number of stacking layers is within 10 times, it is a normal space movement secret technique. If it exceeds 10 times, it is a space explosion secret technique that can make people despair. At least, Yuan didn't dare to use it more than 10 times, and it wasn't certain that anyone could force him to use it more than 10 times. As for the second ability, Yuhara hesitated for a long time and finally chose the secret technique, Black Flame. They originally wanted to choose Unstoppable Blade, but after thinking for a long time, he felt that Fire Style was more suitable for him than this technique. Moreover, the effect of Unstoppable Blade is to ignore defense, but ninjas are not stupid, they will choose to dodge if they can't stop it. Although the effect will be very good when combined with Void Walking, the consumption of chakra is still unimaginable. What's more, many opponents cannot be killed in one go, such as those who know Izanagi, immortals, those who play with puppets, and those who have a lot of hearts. The most important thing is that for a strong man like Uchiha Madara, he may not die even if you really hit his vital point. This black flame from the hunting god can be replaced according to Yuhara's own wishes, so that his fire escape ninjutsu can be transformed into this terrifying black flame. This relatively free selection mode really satisfied Yuhara. After all, the cost of this technique would probably not be small. The most important thing is that the power of this black flame may not be much worse than the so-called Amaterasu, at least according to the description presented by the system. Then, isn't it the same as if Yuhara had obtained Sasuke's Kagetsuchi, especially since he also has the air dance technique? His fire escape will be taken to a higher level in terms of suppression, motivation, and lethality. If we take into account the void walking, doesn't this mean we have obtained 2 future techniques of Uchiha Sasuke? Yuhara left the shrine while thinking about this, and in the following time he practiced and adapted these 2 techniques. No matter whether it is a technique that Yuhara learned by himself or one that was given by the system, it cannot be used properly without sufficient training. Just like the experiment with the aerial dance technique, Yuhara took a good rest after gaining a general understanding of the abilities he had obtained and making some conclusions. The next morning, Shursui came to his house and took him out. I say, is it really that fast? Yuhara seemed a little listless, which was actually a sequelae. After all, he had a fierce fight with Uchiha Fugaku yesterday, but he was too excited that he ignored his own consumption. In addition, the rewards from the system were too abundant, which made him forget everything else. As a result, after resting yesterday, he realized that his consumption was really too much. It's not just the consumption of chakra, but also the consumption of his own pupil power and mental power, so now he looks listless, even though he feels he has recovered well. Today is the beginning of the celebration. As the clan leader, you naturally need to prepare early. Also, as the clan leader, you need to deal with and familiarize yourself with many things. It's better to prepare early. Shursui looked at Yuhara helplessly. He got up very early today, and he heard that Yuhara went to the back mountain alone last night. It was obvious that he was training by himself. He didn't expect that when he came to find Yuhara this morning, he found that this guy was actually sleeping in. This really made Shursui speechless. Yuhara was too lazy to care about so much. He certainly knew what happened today, so he just complained and followed Shursui to walk forward. By the way, how is the security situation? As they walked, Yuhara asked, and he was very concerned about this matter. Celebrations are the most relaxing time, and I don't want anything unexpected to happen during this time. Don't worry, I know about this. Shursui nodded and said, everything has been arranged. I'll take you to see it later. Yeah. Yuhara nodded with a smile. Actually, just make the arrangements. I trust you, Shisui. Yuhara still trusts Shisui very much, but he really has no trust in Uchiha Itachi at all. Moreover, this kid's recent behavior made Yuhara realize that something might really happen. But this kid doesn't know my information. He doesn't even know that I have the Mangekyo Sharingan. This can be considered a hidden advantage. Yuhara's Mangekyo has never been exposed, and those in the family who know about his Mangekyo are the elite and core members. They knew that Uchiha Itachi would not participate in any clan meeting, so they naturally would not tell anyone. Moreover, they had not left Konoha during this period, and at most they just went to the guard department. In addition, the family is always vigilant, so neither Uchiha Itachi nor Konoha can obtain information through these people. To be honest, if we hadn't taken into account this guy Uchiha Fugaku, and had to consider the issue of system prosperity, Yuhara really wanted to capture Uchiha Itachi and open his brain to see what was inside, but it was probably just a bunch of crap, right? No matter what kind of person this guy is, Yuhara has taken precautions from both himself and his family. As long as he dares to take action, Yuhara will definitely make him pay the price. Time passed by unknowingly and it was getting dark. The night was like a song. Uchiha Itachi and the masked Uchiha Obito stood outside the clan territory, looking at the brightly lit Uchiha clan. They were ready to go. The Uchiha would be very lively at this time. You know, ever since being isolated in a corner of the village, the nights here have been particularly deserted, and tonight is obviously a little different. They are going to hold a celebration tonight, but I'm not sure what it is about because they haven't told me. Perhaps sensing that the guy next to him who called himself Uchiha Madara had doubts in his heart, Uchiha Itachi explained indifferently. That's why I chose to make my move tonight. The celebration naturally can't be so heavily guarded, especially since I can sense that Shisui isn't following me today. It seems that you have completely lost the trust of this family. I am curious about how you pushed yourself to this point. Uchiha Obito's voice was still as low, but anyone could hear the sarcasm and teasing in his tone. However, Uchiha Itachi didn't care at all. He closed his eyes slightly and when he opened them again, his eyes had turned extremely scarlet. It doesn't matter whether they trust me or not. I don't need their trust. There is not much left for me to look forward to or to miss in this desperate family. After saying this, Uchiha Itachi took a step forward. He looked back at Obito slightly before continuing. The guards are all back tonight, so you don't need to make a wasted trip. Go ahead and make a decision tonight. As soon as he finished speaking, Uchiha Itachi disappeared into the darkness first, and Uchiha Obito tilted his head, and then his figure also disappeared into the night sky. But they didn't notice that there were extremely hidden cameras on the treetops around them, also monitoring everything. Draw it? If you don't have it this time, there will be another time. End of this chapter. Chapter 74 Looking for Death. Chapter 74 Looking for Death. What? You also installed surveillance cameras? Yes, you asked us to change the sentry, but after searching many locations, the elders found that the change was too troublesome for us and also reduced the defense area. So we simply used surveillance cameras. Although they are not as effective as human beings, they are cheap and convenient. What's wrong with that? Don't you like it? Walking out of the surveillance room, facing Shisui's question, Yuhara suddenly didn't know how to answer, or perhaps this question didn't need an answer at all. Because Yuhara naturally supports this kind of surveillance equipment, but he just couldn't figure it out right away. After all, the combination of surveillance cameras and supernatural forces like ninjas is really too weird. But after thinking about it carefully, Yuhara recalled that there seemed to be technological development in the world of ninja, but its presence had always been weak. For example, there are guns in this ghost world, although they are useless. Ninjas really don't use these things, otherwise this kind of thing would have become popular to deal with ninjas. In addition to this kind of firearm, this world also has movies, televisions, and some simple communication equipment. It can be said that everything that can be used seems to be available. Therefore, it doesn't seem strange to have surveillance cameras. Moreover, Yuhara recalled carefully and it seemed that in the original work, Konoha also installed a lot of cameras outside the Uchiha clan to cooperate with the Umbu to monitor the Uchiha clan. However, this kind of monitoring equipment is the same as what Shui said. Although it is concealed, it is not like a ninja. It can detect the movements around it, and it can also sense chakra. Therefore, monitoring equipment can only be used as auxiliary equipment, and ninjas are still needed to be the main force to accomplish all of this. I don't dislike it, I just feel it's a little weird. Yuhara touched his head and could only give this excuse in the end, and he quickly changed the subject. Then I'll leave it to the tribesmen on guard duty and those in front of the surveillance equipment. I feel bad for them for being so busy during such a big celebration. You know, we have to ask them to stay at their posts at such an important moment. Shui spread his hands helplessly. He seemed to think that Yuhara was being too cautious, but he would not ruin Yuhara's plan. But you said that the family needs discipline, and we are not sure what exactly Konoha will do. We can only say that it is better to be careful. Shusui's words made Yuhara laugh a little, but it's always better to be careful. It's impossible for Yuhara to tell Shui that Uchiha Itachi is in big trouble now, right? And then tell him that if I weren't around, Danzo would have gouged out one of your eyes, and then you would have committed suicide in despair, and Uchiha Itachi would have wiped out his entire clan for the sake of the village and his brother? You can't say this. If you say it, he'll be like a psychopath. Even though Yuhara is an Uchiha and can even open the Mangekyo, he knows very well that he is not a psychopath. Straightening his clothes, Yuhara smiled and said to Shui, "We'll compensate them later. Let's go, my deputy clan leader. If we don't go to the clan meeting today, we'll be in trouble." "Well, let's go." Shui also laughed, but soon he looked away in confusion. At this time, a young Uchiha ninja was running towards them quickly. Seeing his slightly nervous expression, both Shui and Hanehara immediately felt that something might be wrong. Sure enough, after he told everything, Yu Yuan's face had changed. The warm smile on his face had disappeared without a trace, and his brows were tightly furrowed. Shui felt a little helpless when he saw the change in Yuhara's expression. Itachi's behavior during this period was weird. Uchiha Itachi's recent behavior is really confusing. Basically, he doesn't communicate with other family members, even his parents. Although there were family members who had no intention of paying any attention to him, he rarely took the initiative to speak. Notify the Zong Elder and Juji Elder that the celebration is temporarily cancelled, but don't make a big fuss about it. Let them know that the tribesmen are protecting those who are weaker. While Shui was thinking, Yuhara had already given the order directly. "Hayahara, isn't this a bit too tense?" Shui couldn't help but ask. "It's not that I'm nervous, but we always have to take necessary precautions." And they came back quietly with so many dangerous guys. I don't believe they are not dangerous. Yuhara didn't think that his orders were too strict or too excessive. He didn't think that this was too much for Uchiha Itachi. And Yuhara is really angry now. A good celebration was ruined like this by this guy. Who would be happy about this? Does this guy really think he is a messenger of justice and that everything he does is right? Also, notify Uchiha Fugaku to gather with us, and we will go together to meet this genius ninja, the user of the Mangekyo. Of course, if he wants to, he can go meet his son and see what this kid is going to do, and see how our former patriarch will do it. Yuhara took a deep breath, quickly controlled his emotions and then spoke in a low voice. After saying this, Yuhara walked forward without looking back. Fortunately, today is a celebration day, and all the clan members are not at home but gathered at the shrine. Fortunately, he has been on guard and not let the Uchiha relax at all. Otherwise, if Uchiha Itachi rushed into their homes one after another, or attacked them when they were completely unprepared, it would be a real disaster. What makes Yuhara even more disgusted is that even though there are so many Uchiha characters in the original work, not all of them are ninjas. There are even many members of the tribe who are ordinary people and are not qualified to participate in the coup at all. But this guy was so cruel that he killed everyone, regardless of gender, age, or whether they were involved or not, and he did everything in the name of protecting Konoha and his brother. Yuhara hated such indifference and cold-bloodedness. He hadn't done anything in this world yet, so Yuhara considered the prosperity and decided to let Shui persuade him. Now this guy is doing this to himself. He is really courting death, the ninjas were very fast and in just a moment everyone had already started to move. Even though it was a very festive occasion, they still remained careful enough. When Uchiha Fugaku received the news, he was a little dazed. After a long time, he met with Yuhara and then went alone in the direction where Itachi was. He wanted to see his son, he wanted to confirm some things, he really didn't want things to get too bad. Thanks to Pepsi Cola C for the reward, thank you, thank you. P.S. Newbies, please collect and read this, please everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 75 Father and Son. Chapter 75 Father and Son. When Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Obito entered the family, countless masked ninjas appeared in the woods outside the Uchiha clan's territory. They hid in dark corners, looking grimly at the entire Uchiha clan territory. There were many of them, with different masks on each, and they were divided into several major directions and surrounded the Uchiha clan's territory in secret. Their leader made a hand gesture, and the next moment a root ninja quickly formed a hand seal, and in just a moment, accompanied by a puff of smoke, the formation of the spiritual barrier quietly appeared. In the root station, Danzo sat in his seat and waited silently. At this moment, a root ninja quickly came over to report to him. Master Danzo, Uchiha Itachi has entered the Uchiha clan territory. Please give instructions. Danzo nodded slightly, then looked up through the window at the sky. The moonlight was bright, but in his eyes it seemed blood red, as if foreshadowing the coming massacre. Stay there, and let Itachi Uchiha handle matters within the Uchiha clan territory tonight. But if any Uchiha clan member escapes, he must be killed without mercy. Also, it is forbidden to attack Uchiha Sasuke. Keep him under our control as much as possible. The root ninja in front of him whispered, and then conveyed his order. The root base in the darkness returned to its previous silence, and a sneer appeared on Danzo's face. A lot of ninjas were mobilized tonight, and even if Uchiha Itachi said something nice, the Konoha high-level officials would not completely believe him. These ninjas must be there, and Danzo's power tonight is unimaginable. They know that the Uchiha is holding a celebration tonight. They didn't know what this celebration was and didn't care, but in order to avoid any accidents, the third Hokage even handed over his direct Umbu to Danzo tonight. Even though Danzo did not mobilize the Umbu people now, he truly controlled the Umbu at this moment. Even if it was only tonight, this also made him feel the power of the Hokage. As for the third Hokage, he was naturally working in the office. As the Hokage, he was completely unaware of the Uchiha clan's genocide from beginning to end. However, he also asked his close ANBU members to find Sasuke, who was still in school because of his adjustment. After stepping into the clan territory, Uchiha Itachi glanced to the left. He knew that there should be 3 Uchiha ninjas hiding there, which was the first secret sentry at the entrance. Even though today is a celebration, the Uchiha still has a certain level of defense, even if the level of defense is not high. Okay? However, when Uchiha Itachi passed the test, his brows furrowed involuntarily. Because he found that there was no one in that place. What's going on? Has the sentry been replaced, or has the person on guard tonight also gone to attend the celebration? Uchiha Itachi had a bad feeling in his mind, and he subconsciously did not have much contact with his family during this period. Not only did the people in the family ignore him and his inquiries yield no results, but he also subconsciously wanted to distance himself from the family. Now that he has made up his mind, he is unwilling to have any more emotional entanglements with this family that is bound to be destroyed. He was willing to spend more time on his younger brother because he knew that his younger brother would definitely survive. Forget it, no matter what you think and plan, today will be the end. I will protect the peace of Konoha and bear the sins of Uchiha. Uchiha Itachi thought silently in his mind, then he accelerated and ran towards the shrine, but as he walked, he suddenly saw a person standing in front of him. The appearance of this person made him frown, because this person was his father Uchiha Fugaku. Itachi, you come back so late and are dressed like this. Can I ask you if you know what you are doing? Uchiha Fugaku looked at his son. His expression was a little lonely and depressed, but at the same time, there seemed to be some expectation in his eyes. However, Uchiha Itachi's indifferent attitude and the words he said made Uchiha Fugaku feel cold in his heart. Of course I know what I am doing. I am trying to eliminate the disaster. I want to bring peace to the village. I want to save everything. I am preserving the last dignity of the Uchiha clan. On the contrary, father, do you know what you are doing? Do you know what will happen to you? Uchiha Fugaku looked at Uchiha Itachi in silence. He had already learned from his wife about Uchiha Itachi's abnormality in the past month. It's a pity that he couldn't meet Uchiha Itachi at all, but he heard that Shisui had communicated with Itachi. Although it did not say what the clan would do, it revealed the family's future direction. Integrate into Konoha, fight against unfair oppression, and let everyone in Konoha hear their voices. This was the information that Uchiha Fugaku immediately concluded after hearing Shisui's words. What they were going to fight against was not Konoha but the person who oppressed them, that is, the current Hokage. Hokage and Konoha are one, but in essence they are separate. He really doesn't know why his son has become like this. I think you misunderstood something. Taking a deep breath, Uchiha Fugaku stared at Uchiha Itachi. He spoke in a somewhat dull voice, but he was interrupted just as he opened his mouth. I have no misunderstanding. I know what you are going to do. You are going to fight against the Hokage and this village. Under the silver moonlight, Uchiha Itachi looked exceptionally determined and grim, but his words also made Uchiha Fugaku completely disappointed. No need to say more. No matter what you want to do, I have seen the future of our family and your future. It looks like tonight won't have a good ending. Uchiha Fugaku closed his eyes and said hoarsely. He now felt powerless and sad. Why do you think you can handle the Uchiha by yourself? I'm not alone. Uchiha Itachi said indifferently, even if I'm alone, what I want to do is justice, I think. Having said this, Uchiha Itachi paused slightly, and the next moment his scarlet eyes had turned into a kaleidoscope. With my eyes, the same eyes as Shisui's, I can accomplish my mission. As soon as he finished speaking, Uchiha Itachi had already assumed a fighting stance, and Uchiha Fugaku sighed deeply. It has to be said that he got an answer that made him extremely disappointed, even desperate. The Uchiha family seemed to be changing and everything was about to get back on track, but his own son wanted to destroy it all with his own hands. Was it because I had given him too little care and instruction, or was it that Sarutobi Hiruzen and the others had too much of an influence on my son? But no matter which one it is, it cannot change Uchiha Itachi's sin. Especially since he has now implicitly admitted what he is going to do, Uchiha Fugaku really doesn't believe that anyone will let him go. Uchiha Fugaku opened his eyes slightly, and his eyes had already shown 3 Magatama, and these 3 Magatama were spinning rapidly. But before Uchiha Fugaku could speak, a voice came from a distance. This voice made Uchiha Fugaku sigh, and also made Uchiha Itachi frown. You just said, what can you do with your eyes? End of this chapter. Chapter 76. From today on, you are expelled from the Uchiha clan. Chapter 76. From today on, you are expelled from the Uchiha clan. You just said, what can you do with your eyes? Looking around, I saw Yuhara and Shisui walking side by side, and behind them were the Uchiha elites who had already changed into combat uniforms. Those pairs of scarlet eyes looked so strange under the moonlight. A cold atmosphere enveloped the Uchiha clan's territory and also enveloped Uchiha Itachi's head. Come out, we've already noticed your presence. Yuhara glanced at Uchiha Itachi, but soon his eyes looked away. If it was before, Yuhara would definitely not be able to detect that there was another person hiding in the space. But after acquiring the skill of walking in the void, he also became somewhat sensitive to space, and he could easily detect fluctuations in space. Are all the younger generations nowadays so capable? You're pretty good, kid. You actually managed to find me? As Yu Yuan finished speaking, a voice suddenly came from the void. Then a spiral appeared in the void in the darkness, and a masked figure quietly appeared. His eyes fell on Yuhara, and his expression under the mask seemed a little surprised, because it was the first time that he was pulled out of the space. This made him somewhat unsure of how this guy Yuhara discovered him, or what abilities he possessed. Sharingan, with that pattern, a Mangekyo Sharingan? Yuhara looked at Obito's appearance and spoke slowly, and soon his eyes turned to Uchiha Itachi again. Uchiha Itachi, I am really disappointed in you. Disappointed with your performance and your decision. You really don't deserve to be a member of the family. What does one clan, one village mean? Uchiha Yuhara, what do you know? What qualifications do you have to teach me a lesson? Uchiha Itachi frowned, but most of his attention was still on Shisui and his father. As for Yuhara, to be honest, he didn't care. Yuhara is indeed a genius in the family, but the level of his genius is still a huge gap compared to Shisui. Moreover, he has disliked Yuhara since he was a child, because the ideas expressed by Yuhara since he was a child are completely different from his own. This guy is definitely not a loyal person to the Hokage. As a member of Konoha's Jonin, I have the qualifications. As the new head of the Uchiha clan, I have even more qualifications. Yuhara looked at Uchiha Itachi and spoke calmly, then he raised his hand slightly, and the Uchiha elite behind them immediately dispersed. They were in a semi-encirclement, vaguely surrounding Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Obito. They knew very well that this was not a battle they could participate in, because this Uchiha Itachi and that mysterious guy had kaleidoscope eyes. But in order to assist the clan leader in killing the man who attempted to destroy the family, they had to take action. They had all heard what Uchiha Itachi said. The new head of the Uchiha clan? Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Obito both frowned when they heard what Yuhara said, especially Uchiha Itachi, who couldn't help but look at his father. However, what made him feel incredible was that his father seemed to have acquiesced to all this and did not make any objection at all. When did the Uchiha clan change its clan leader? Interesting. Obito suddenly laughed, and his tone seemed full of sarcasm. It seems that I have been away for too long. This family has become more interesting and more corrupt. Even a kid like you can be the clan leader. This is really interesting. I can be the clan leader because of my personal ability. It is you who makes me feel very disgusted. Yuhara raised his eyebrows, his eyes fell on Obito again, and then he spoke meaningfully. You are a member of the Uchiha clan, but as far as I can remember, there doesn't seem to be anyone like you in the clan, so you must be one of the exiles. But it doesn't matter who you are, and it doesn't matter what your identity is, even if you say you are Uchiha Madara or something else. Yuhara took the initiative to stop Obito from saying anything. He was not sure what impact the name Uchiha Madara would have on the current Uchiha clan. And most importantly, do you still remember the nine-tailed fox incident 8 years ago? As soon as Yuhara finished speaking, the faces of all the Uchiha members present, including Uchiha Fugaku, changed. They naturally could not forget the shock and impact that the Nine-Tails incident had on the Uchiha. That was the beginning of the Uchiha falling into such a situation. Every member of the clan hated the guy who controlled the Nine-Tails, and the look in their eyes when they looked at Obito was full of murderous intent. Uchiha Itachi, on the other hand, seemed very calm. It's not that he hadn't considered such a situation. On the contrary, he thought of it the first time he met this guy who called himself Uchiha Madara. But he had no intention of saying anything or explaining anything. He wanted to investigate and figure out everything on his own. Oh, you reacted quickly. Obito said nonchalantly, I did control the Nine-Tails in Konoha back then. I thought you all had forgotten it. How could we possibly forget such a thing? Seeing that Obito directly admitted it all, Yuhara fixed his eyes on Uchiha Itachi. The Nine-Tails incident made the third Hokage and other high-ranking officials believe that this incident was related to us Uchiha, and we have been subjected to endless oppression and distrust in the past 8 years. This made us become disappointed with the Hokage, which made us want to rebel, and the Nine-Tails incident 8 years ago also resulted in the death of the fourth Hokage and his wife. Uchiha Itachi, you are so noble to be with such a person. As soon as he finished speaking, the three Magatama in Yuhara's eyes began to spin quickly, and the aura on his body began to become cold. Not only him, but Shisui and Uchiha Fugaku also looked at Obito with murderous intent in their eyes. And the look he gave Uchiha Itachi no longer had the helplessness and entanglement from before. Instead, there was only endless coldness, as if he was facing a stranger. In an instant, the eyes of both of them began to change. In just a moment, 3 pairs of Mangekyo quietly bloomed in the incredulous eyes of Uchiha Itachi and the slightly frowning look of Obito. You just said that you can solve problems with your eyes, and that you are not alone. Yuhara's indifferent voice sounded again, and the chakra in his body surged wildly. Well, I want to see how the two of you will face 3 pairs of eyes like this. Also, Uchiha Itachi, from today on, I, in the name of the clan leader, declare that you are permanently expelled from the Uchiha clan, and you no longer have the Uchiha clan's surname. Give me your eyes, and... Before he finished speaking, Yuhara had already arrived in front of Uchiha Itachi, and the ninja sword in his hand burst out with endless cold light. Your life. End of this chapter. Chapter 77, Even the Kaleidoscope has differences. Chapter 77, Even the Kaleidoscope has differences. Ding! In an instant, Yuhara had arrived in front of Uchiha Itachi, and his ninja sword directly slashed towards Uchiha Itachi's neck. He was extremely ruthless and showed no mercy at all, but Uchiha Itachi reacted quickly and in a flash he had blocked the attack with his ninja sword. Yuhara didn't use his full strength when he attacked, and he didn't even use the void walking. Because he also has to guard against Uchiha Obito's sneak attack, and at the same time he has to see what decision Uchiha Fugaku will make in the end. What made him feel more relieved was that Uchiha Fugaku simply gave Uchiha Itachi a cold look, and then immediately looked at Obito again with great caution. This action speaks for itself, and Yuhara started to use a little more force this time. He gently swung the ninja sword in his hand, and then moved towards Uchiha Itachi again at a strange angle. Uchiha Itachi reacted quickly. Almost at the moment when the Yubara ninja sword was about to cut his throat, he had quietly activated the substitution technique. As the smoke enveloped, 2 pieces of wood scattered on the ground, and Uchiha Itachi himself appeared next to a house not far away. At this time, Uchiha Itachi was very confused. He originally thought that Shisui was the only one in the family who had a pair of Mangekyo Sharingan. He had never thought that his father, and Uchiha Nara, who was once as famous as Shisui, also had such eyes. He had never expected that Uchiha Yuhara was now the patriarch of the family, and had directly expelled him from the Uchiha clan. Looking at Shisui in his father's cold eyes as if they were facing strangers, he felt very depressed at this moment, such depression that he could hardly breathe. Why did things turn out like this? Why did things develop to this point, Lord Patriarch? At this moment, Uchiha Fugaku took a step forward. He bowed slightly to Yuhara respectfully, then silently raised his head and fixed his gaze on Uchiha Itachi. I hope the Patriarch can hand this sinful man over to me. I want to personally wash away the sins I have committed. Uchiha Fugaku did not call Itachi's name, and Yuhara could see Uchiha Fugaku's cold and determined emotion at this moment. But after thinking about it, Yuhara shook his head and spoke slowly. Fugaku-kun, I appreciate your kindness, but I will not let either you or Shisui deal with him. This has nothing to do with trust, because the relationship and emotions between you and him are too deep, and it would be too cruel for you to deal with him. You have a better opponent. The person who once committed crimes in Konoha and made the situation of Uchiha so difficult is here. Shisui, Fugaku, I have a mission for you. Kill this man to restore the reputation of the Uchiha. After saying this, Yuhara walked towards Uchiha Itachi again with the ninja sword in his hand, while Uchiha Fugaku looked at Yuhara's back and finally sighed slightly. Turning his head, his eyes, like Shisui's, were locked on Uchiha Obito. At this moment, his eyes were filled with crazy murderous intent. Although he did not blame Yuhara for being impeached by Yuhara, he blamed himself for his actions at that time, which made him full of resentment and loss. And now the person who caused Uchiha and caused serious problems in his original judgment is right in front of him. How can he still endure it? I don't know who you are, and I don't care who you are, but it was you who released the 9 tails, and it was you who killed the Yandame Hokage and his wife. Uchiha Fugaku said this almost gritting his teeth. The aura in his body became particularly cold at this moment, making people uneasy. You are the culprit who put the Uchiha in this situation. I think we have to settle this account. You are a damned cloak and dagger, like a rat in a stinking ditch. After saying that, Uchiha Fugaku rushed forward first, and Shisui also took out his short sword and followed behind Uchiha Fugaku. He also hated this guy to the core. If it weren't for this guy, would Uchiha have fallen into such a situation now? Similarly, at this time, Shisui no longer had Uchiha Itachi in his heart, and it seemed that it started with the identity of the mysterious man Yuhara. Uchiha Itachi actually stayed with such a person and even attempted to destroy Uchiha. Such a person really does not deserve to have the Uchiha surname. From the moment he was expelled from the clan by Yuhara in the name of the clan leader, he was no longer a member of the Uchiha clan. He would only be the enemy of the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Fugaku and Uchiha Shursui rushed towards Obito, and Yuhara once again came in front of Uchiha Itachi. At this time, Yuhara still remained extremely vigilant, although he was indeed strong enough at this time. He possesses the Mangekyo and has the help of the system, which has given him a series of enhancements. He is confident even when facing Uchiha Shursui. However, the strangeness of the Mangekyo made him dare not relax at all, especially since he had no idea what the ability of Uchiha Itachi's Mangekyo was. Ding! A flash of azure blade light appeared, and Uchiha Itachi quickly retreated. At the same time, a short blade appeared in his hand, barely blocking Yuhara's attack. However, such resistance seemed to be of no use to Yuhara's swordsmanship. When he raised his sword to counterattack, Yuhara had already drawn his sword and launched a second round of attack. Along with Yuhara's sword dance, the sharp blades formed by the wind chakra kept circling, and the sharp wind blades kept blowing, making it impossible for Uchiha Itachi to attack at all. Moreover, his swordsmanship was obviously no match for Yuhara's, and all he could do was keep retreating and dodging. The sound of metal clashing continued, and Uchiha Itachi's fight became increasingly difficult. He really had never thought that Uchiha Yuhara would be so strong. The most important thing is that he can't understand why this guy has the Mangekyo Sharingan. When did he get such a pair of eyes? However, he knew very well that Yuhara would not give him any answers, such as why his father lost the position of clan leader and the clan leader became the guy in front of him. Ding! The ninja swords collided fiercely, and Uchiha Itachi quickly used the instant body flickering technique to quietly create a certain distance. Then he began to form seals at almost the fastest speed, and his chakra surged rapidly. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. Childish. When Yu Yuan saw this scene, he couldn't help but snort coldly, and he rushed forward without stopping at all. But at this moment, a warning suddenly arose in his heart, and he dodged to the side in an instant. At this moment, a sound of breaking air passed by his clothes. Without needing to see, Yuhara knew that there was nothing wrong with him, and he was also sure that this was the masterpiece of Uchiha Itachi. Interesting. You use fire style to block my sight and then launch a surprise attack? Yuhara scanned quickly with his eyes, and almost in an instant he determined Uchiha Itachi's position, and the next moment he pressed forward. Just at this moment, Yuhara clearly saw blood and tears begin to appear in Uchiha Itachi's eyes, and strange chakra filled the surroundings at this moment. A hot breath began to spread, and black flames quietly appeared in Yuhara's sight. The appearance of such flames instantly made Yuhara realize what one of the abilities of Uchiha Itachi's Mangekyo was. If nothing unexpected happened, this was Amaterasu. If that's the case, then his other ability might be Tsukuyami? Although Yuhara was very curious about how he opened his eyes and gained these two abilities, this was excellent news for Yuhara anyway. There are differences between the Sharingan and the Mangekyo. Yuhara wanted Uchiha Itachi to take a good look before he died, to see how big the gap was between him and Uchiha Itachi, who had just obtained the Mangekyo. End of this chapter. Chapter 78, The Nemesis of Illusion. Chapter 78, The Nemesis of Illusion. When the dark and scorching flame of Amaterasu quietly appeared and covered Yuhara's body, the Azure Chakra also covered Yuhara's body at this moment. He was not sure if the ninjutsu, Ki Shield, could block Amaterasu. If it was before, he would definitely not dare to try it. But now that he has the terrifying spatial movement ability of void walking, he has the capital to do some necessary experiments. In fact, the best way to fight against Amaterasu's fire is to have a layer of power that can block the fire before the Hokage ignites himself, and let the fire burn instead. The Chi Shield can indeed do this, but Yuhara has always been worried about one thing, that is whether the Chi Shield will be instantly burned through by the flames of Amaterasu. The products produced by the system have always been very trustworthy, and the strength of the Chi Shield against general escape techniques has been verified. But what he had to face this time was not an ordinary jutsu, but the eye technique of the Mangekyo Sharingan. Even though Amaterasu didn't burn anyone to death in the original novel, he still had to be extremely careful. After all, Yuhara himself killed many people using the fire escape technique that couldn't burn anyone to death in the original novel. Buzz! Black flames bloomed on Yuhara's body, and at this moment these horrifying black flames were blocked by a layer of azure chakra on Yuhara's body. The sound of the chakra shield burning continued, but Yuhara himself had no problems at all. The chi shield blocked the attack of Amaterasu's flame, even though the chi shield would be consumed almost instantly under such burning. But Yuhara is absolutely sure that his chi shield can indeed temporarily resist such an attack. It won't last very long though. But anyway, this is enough. I can just give up this part of the chakra to ignite the chakra-constructed air shield. Yuhara thought silently in his heart, and at the same time he had already discarded the chakra of this part of the chi shield in his body. The flame of the sun fell to the ground and began to burn all around, as if it was going to burn everything around it. Yuhara nodded silently. The chi shield as chakra can indeed be discarded directly. He also noticed that the power of Amaterasu's flame seemed to be similar to his own black flame. Even if Amaterasu's flame was stronger, his black flame would not be much different. It seems that I really did use some of Uchiha Sasuke's characteristics in his late stage as my signature, but compared to the cheats he got in his late stage, I am still far behind. Yuhara muttered silently in his heart. Compared with Sasuke in the later period, he was still very self-aware. Moreover, compared to considering the future, Yuhara's focus is more on the present, especially on Uchiha Itachi. Uchiha Itachi's expression had become somewhat ugly at this moment. Even though he felt suffocated and uncomfortable inside before, he did not show any signs. But at this time he could no longer control his emotions. Although the physical confrontation was incomplete and was just a simple sword fight, he could already be considered to have suffered a crushing defeat. He had no choice but to engage in a clash of ninjutsu, because he had heard that Yuhara's control over the jutsu was very strong, so he naturally did not intend to confront him, and what he had to do was to play to his strengths and avoid his weaknesses. He wasn't sure exactly when Yuhara had acquired the Mangekyo, but strictly speaking it wasn't particularly important since Yuhara had no information on him at all. Finding the right moment to use pupil techniques to launch a sneak attack is his best option. He found a not-so-good opportunity, so he used his Mangekyo's most offensive eye technique, Amaterasu's Flame. But he really didn't expect that his technique didn't even touch Yuhara, but was directly blocked by the azure chakra on Yuhara's body. Is that Susanoo? Uchiha Itachi muttered silently in his heart, but it was obvious that he had no time to think about it now, because Yuhara had already come completely close to him. Facing the aggressive Yuhara, Uchiha Itachi raised his sword with all his strength to block the attack, but the next moment he felt a sharp pain in his stomach. Obviously, he was kicked in the abdomen by Yuhara, and he flew backwards. We can't go on like this. This guy's strength is in ninjutsu, but I didn't expect his taijutsu and dojutsu were so powerful. So, Uchiha Itachi made a decision silently in his heart. Looking at Yuhara, who swung his sword again without any hesitation, Uchiha Itachi silently began to gather chakra. No one is perfect. He can feel that Yuhara is very strong, but he believes that Yuhara cannot be strong in everything. Since you are so good at physical skills, illusion skills and ninjutsu, you have never even revealed what your eye skills are. But as for the ability of illusion, Uchiha Itachi doesn't believe that Yuhara is still that strong. The Kaleidoscope can indeed greatly resist the effects of illusions, but his illusions are not ordinary illusions. Okay? Yuhara, who was madly suppressing Uchiha Itachi, suddenly frowned, because he clearly saw in his eyes that Uchiha Itachi's Mangekyo began to gather power rapidly. This made Yuhara a little alert, and he was also thinking, could it be that this guy wanted to use Amaterasu to deal with him? As he was thinking about this, Yuhara once again blocked Uchiha Itachi's short sword, then swung his left hand and punched Uchiha Itachi hard. He was only 15 or 16 years old, and the enemies he had faced before were basically adults. Therefore, he is always the one who suffers physically, and he has to find every way to deal with his enemies. And now facing Uchiha Itachi, even though this guy also possesses the Mangekyo Sharingan, he is younger than him and his physical fitness is obviously not as developed as his. This allowed Yuhara to enjoy the rare feeling of bullying others, and Yuhara actually liked this feeling. However, at this moment, a strange force suddenly emerged, and under this force, Yuan instantly felt that his mental consciousness seemed to be entangled. This immediately made him realize that he was under an illusion. Looking around quickly, Yuhara found that he was now fixed on a cross. The whole space was grayish-white, and only the moon in the sky was so blood-red. This scene made Yuhara clearly realize that he was dragged into the Tsukuyomi space. How come both father and son are good at illusions? And they are both able to drag people into an illusion. Can't I say they are really worthy of being father and son? Yuhara thought silently in his heart, and while thinking about it, he really felt relieved. The Tsukuyomi eye technique is indeed terrifying. Even Kakashi has no way to resist Tsukuyomi. Although this has something to do with the fact that Kakashi didn't know the strength of his eyes, and he didn't open the Mangekyo Sharingan to fight back. But it has reached this level, even the strength of the 3 Magatama state is not comparable to the normal 3 Magatama. It can only be said that the power of the Tsukuyomi technique is indeed strong enough. But even if this technique is powerful, Yuhara is not too worried. Because in some sense, as a descendant of the Minotaur, he is really the nemesis of illusions. Thanks to my book friends 15080509592761, Ipanyao, Bojuyiki Angxian, Mangbuju and Kingla Dadahai for their tips. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 79 Uchiha Itachi and #039, as thoughts on dealing with the problem. Chapter 79 Uchiha Itachi's thoughts on dealing with the problem. Brothers, tonight is the final end of Uchiha Itachi. I had an idea before, which is to let this guy live, let him watch Uchiha become stronger, let him see how childish his thoughts are, and let him regret it himself. I feel relieved to see that everyone still supports me. After all, I've always felt that it's not like he has no other way to deal with family issues, and if the family really gets to that point, the Uchiha who aren't ninjas, the children, or even the babies, do they have to die too? He only left a younger brother behind, seemingly loving him greatly, but he was always controlling him. He also prepared some gods so that Sasuke could protect Konoha forever. I actually don't have any good feelings towards such a person. Moreover, I think what a classmate said in the book review is quite right. The convert's fanaticism should be his current state. It would be too easy for him to just kill him like this. But someone has to pay the price for him being alive, and Obito is here. Finally, it's really not water, things need to be laid out step by step. Please collect and read on, please everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 80 You are an unfaithful and unfilial person. Chapter 80 You are an unfaithful and unfilial person. Uchiha Hana era. Just as Yuhara was thinking silently, in the illusion space where black and white intersected, Uchiha Itachi was already walking towards him with a ninja sword in his hand. In such a gray and hazy space, Yuhara couldn't see Uchiha Itachi's expression at all, but at this moment he was quite relaxed. After confirming that he was hit by the Tsukuyomi Jutsu, he was not too worried. He just looked at Uchiha Itachi calmly, and at the same time secretly began to prepare his own techniques, ready to give Uchiha Itachi a fatal counterattack at any time. Although I admit that you are indeed very strong, and you have hidden it very deeply, you actually also master the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan. But you have entered the realm that I control, where time, space and mass are all controlled by me. Even if this is indeed just an illusion, it is not an ordinary illusion. Even if you also have a kaleidoscope, it seems that you will fall into it. Everything you touch now will be transmitted to your brain, and your brain will recognize that everything is real, whether it is pain or death. Uchiha Itachi spoke in an indifferent tone and seemed very confident, but this guy did not come over, and it was obvious that he was still afraid of Yuhara. This scene made Yuhara feel very interesting. This Uchiha Itachi was not like his father after all. After all, his father dragged himself into a similar illusion space at that time, but he came here to seek death. You're confident. Although Yuhara felt a little disgusted with Uchiha Itachi, this guy was Yuhara's enemy and he had no reason to continue playing around with him. The most important thing is that Shisui and Uchiha Fugaku are still dealing with Obito. They have no information about Uchiha Obito, and Yuhara doesn't want anything unexpected to happen to them. It's not that Yuhara is unwilling to reveal information about Obito, but that he simply has no way to reveal it. It's okay to have a broad vision and a sharp mind, but if you know everything about everything, that's a problem. You know, I had a sparring match with Fugaku-kun not long ago. It was a kaleidoscope-level sparring match. Yuhara spoke indifferently. He looked at Uchiha Itachi calmly, and the chakra in his body was slowly surging. He has a similar technique to you, but you know, he lost miserably that time. As soon as he finished speaking, Yuhara's aura began to become extremely strange, and Uchiha Itachi's expression became more alert. However, he still maintained a certain degree of confidence. This was the illusion space created by the Kaleidoscope, and this was the Kaleidoscope's pupil technique. He really didn't want to believe that Yuhara could break through so easily. Even though this guy said that his father also had such ability, no one knew whether it was true. It seems that you don't believe what I say, but that's right. After all, we are enemies. If you believe me easily, then there is a problem. Yuhara looked at Uchiha Itachi and shook his head slightly, but the next moment the entire illusion space was spinning, as if everything in the world was reversed. Yuhara gently walked down from the cross that tied him up, and the next second the entire illusion space was filled with Yuhara's chakra. Uchiha Itachi only felt that the illusion space was not under his control at all, and he was locked on the cross while the world was spinning. But the fact is, your tricks have no effect on me at all. To be honest, I never imagined that I would hate someone to the extent that I do. Konoha is Konoha, the Hokage is the Hokage is Konoha's Hokage, but Konoha is not the Hokage's Konoha. You don't even know such a basic question. I really can't imagine how you are regarded as a genius, but it's not surprising, because you didn't even finish ninja school. Your family raised you, taught you, and trained you to be a qualified ninja, but when your family was in danger, you didn't think about how to help the family solve the problem. Instead, you joined forces with a group of people who were already full of distrust towards the family to attack the family, and you even joined forces with the person who brought the family into an irretrievable disaster. You believe in Konoha but you are disloyal to it. Your family raised you but you did such a thing to it. How unfilial you are. You are such a disloyal and unfilial person. Having said that, the chakra in Yuhara's body spread wildly. Under the secret technique, firm will, Yuhara has already broken free from Tsukuyami's control, and he can even rely on his own Tao reversal to counter Uchiha Itachi with his eye power. In particular, Yuhara discovered that during his firm will, the consumption of the kaleidoscope seemed to be almost negligible to him, but now is not the time for Yuhara to think about these things. A ninja sword appeared in his hand at some point, and the next moment he swung the sword fiercely at Uchiha Itachi. How dare you continue to live in this world? The ninja sword was swung out quickly, and at the moment when the ninja sword was about to hit Uchiha Itachi, the entire illusion space quickly collapsed. The fragmented space scattered like glass fragments, and the moment it hit Uchiha Itachi in the Yuhara illusion space, the entire space collapsed. In the real world, Uchiha Itachi covered his chest and retreated fiercely. Just as he said, the brain will regard all attacks suffered in the Tsukuyami space as real. At this moment, Uchiha Itachi was hit back by his own technique, and his eyes could no longer be restrained and blood was flowing out again. He now felt dizzy and his eyes were in severe pain. If he was not forcing himself to hold on, he might not even be able to maintain the kaleidoscope. However, at this moment, Yuhara had already rushed in front of him, stabbing his chest with the ninja sword in his right hand, while his left hand had already grabbed towards his eyes. Flutter! In such a hurry, Uchiha Itachi directly dodged the space from the ninja sword, and one of his eyes had been grabbed by Yuhara. With a fierce leap back, Uchiha Itachi created enough distance. He quickly formed seals with his ninja hands once again, and a huge fire dragon gushed out of his mouth. Still resisting? Yuhara looked at Uchiha Itachi with disdain, then he quickly dodged the roaring fire dragon, but Uchiha Itachi showed no intention of stopping. He once again formed hand seals and performed fire escape, and this time his fire escape landed in the direction where Yuhara dodged, which made Yuhara raise his eyebrows. You want to fight with ninjutsu, can you afford the chakra consumption? Yuhara once again easily dodged Uchiha Itachi's fire escape, but this time he did not move forward. He glanced at the battle between Shisui and Uchiha Fugaku on the side, and he found that these two people could not do anything to Obito. But Obito was helpless against these two people, and he was even obviously at a disadvantage. If it weren't for this guy Kamui, he might have been finished. Obito is not the Obito of the future. Although he has strength now, it is not enough. His only advantage is that Mangekyo. Moreover, Obito seemed to be on guard against Shisui. Obviously, he was worried that he would be affected by Shisui's Mangekyo, which made Yuhara feel a lot more at ease. You want to use fire style to restrict me? Then I'll show you my fire style. He casually threw the eye he had picked up into the ninja tool bag and stuck the ninja sword into the ground. Yuhara instantly formed seals with both hands, and a suffocatingly hot breath emanated wildly. The next moment, under Uchiha Itachi's stunned and horrified gaze, a huge black dragon roared towards him. End of this chapter. Alright legends, that's it for today. Like, subscribe, and I'll meet you in the next audiobook.